नमस्ते भैया, एक मिनट बस मैं ना फाइनल किया था, पीपीटी ट्रांसफ़र कर दिया इसमें। मैंने कैमरा बंद किया था। मैं ट्रांसफ़र ना, मेरा पीपीटी ट्रांसफ़र नहीं किया था मैंने। उस दिन तो पता है खप्पी हो गया था, मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं थी। मेरा ऑडियो बंद है ना अभी।
अभी आपके रहेगा 10 से 12
के 12:30 हो जाएंगे। मैं ज़्यादा नहीं खींचूँगी।
और लंच के बाद का
डॉक्टर सीमा का है।
ये लास्ट टाइम लेक्चर किसका हुआ था? ये आपका हुआ था वेडनेसडे को।
बाद में बात कर लें।
चलो कोई नहीं।
ये किधर लगा लूँ?
लगाइए।
मेरे को अगर बोन दिखाना है, जब बोन दिखानी है तब हाँ हाँ, मैं टर्न ऑन कैमरा कर दूँगी ना तब।
उसको नहीं करना प्रॉब्लम, मैंने किया हुआ है।
अभी के लिए ऑफ कर दो, 1 मिनट।
ऑफ है, अभी तो ऑफ है।
नहीं, शेयर हो रही है ना स्क्रीन।
नहीं,
अभी मैं स्क्रीन 2 मिनट अपना चला लूँ, फिर ऑन कर देती हूँ ना। चल जाएगा। बाहर ही रख लूँ डेस्कटॉप पे या फोल्डर?
कैसे ही कर लो।
हेलो, गुड मॉर्निंग मैम। मैम आई एम इन द LT itself मैम। मैंने शुरू वो कर लिया है ट्रांसफ़र। यस मैम। मैम अभी हैं तो मैं जस्ट सेटिंग द स्लाइड्स एक बार ही देख रही थी। स्कैपुला का ठीक था मैम, उसी बेसिस पे मैंने ना एक्चुअली ज़्यादा लिखा नहीं था मैम। आई वॉज लाइक मोर इनटू। थैंक यू मैम। सॉरी मैम, वो आई जस्ट आई वाज यस मैम। थैंक यू मैम, बाय। हम भी ना एक्चुअली अपने हिसाब से कुछ ज़्यादा ही पढ़ लेते हैं जब ना। मेरा कुछ जा तो नहीं है ना कहीं आवाज़। आए नहीं अभी तो बच्चे। मोहन भैया, मेरा ये सब कुछ दिखता है ना, मैं जो भी कर रही हूँ, है ना?
अब आप शुरू करेंगे?
अभी तो आए नहीं बच्चे।
बच्चे तो आगे
23 है।
हाँ,
वो तो बात कर रहे हैं।
कोई बात नहीं कर लेना।
हाँ।
आपको इसमें कैमरा ऑन करना पड़ेगा, वॉइस और रिकॉर्डिंग।
तो ये तो मैं ऑन कर लूँ रिकॉर्डिंग।
आपको एक तीन चीज़ करना पड़ेगा कि ये
ठीक है।
वाला,
हाँ
ये वाला, ये वाला।
हाँ।
कुछ नहीं करना था आपको।
मगर
उनका आवाज़ हम सुन सकते हैं, वो हमारा नहीं सुनेंगे।
मैं मेरी तो नहीं जा रही ना अभी। ठीक है।
और तो कुछ जोर तो कुछ
नहीं, मास्क उतार दो।
हाँ हाँ, और आपसे उतारो।
पहले ही उतार दिया मैंने। ऐसा लगता है सांस नहीं आ रहा जैसे।
आप ना ये यूट्यूब पे तो आएगा।
हाँ मैं वही कह रही हूँ, ये आता है
यूट्यूब पे आएगा।
बट बच्चों को दिखता है।
जो यूट्यूब पे देखेगा वो। ये नहीं जाएगा, ये आएगा, ये जाएगा। जैसे यूट्यूब पे देखते नहीं थे लोग बात।
Morning, everybody. I hope you all are keeping well. This is my second class with you. I am Dr. Vidhu Dhawan. Yeah. So you already had one of the bone demonstrations before, and one of the dissection demos was done, right? Yeah.
Recording वाले का दबा दिया.
ठीक है.
This conference will now be recorded.
Just hang on for a minute, guys. Yeah, hi, a very good morning again. This is my second class with you. So initially the first class that I took was on the tissues of the body. But now, for now that your dissection has, the dissection that you guys would have been doing has not started officially. We are just trying to figure out the means by which we can show you the ways to the dissection hall. We are showing you all the possible measures that can be done, and we are taking you to the dissection hall through all these media, the multimedias and all that, right? So initially in the first class, it was your first bone demo, first osteology demonstration, first dissection lecture demonstration for the same. Idly, one thing I would like to say that whatever we are doing now in these classes, these are actually dissection hall topics, okay? You guys are doing it. We'll be showing you the bone here. We'll be showing you the glimpse of the bone videos here. It will be a little difficult sometimes. You're not able to visualize how that bone is actually looking like when you actually are not holding that particular bone in your hands. But that's okay. We are going to be taking it slow. You guys don't have to panic. You will be doing it again and again. All the things are going to be repeated. All right. So you guys can move on to the screen where I would be showing you, because again this is a bone demonstration. So I'll be showing you the bone with me okay. So I would just be a little review of what you guys did in the last class. When we start the regional anatomy, we are doing the anatomy by regions, okay? We have upper limbs, lower limbs, thorax, abdomen. So the start of the first prof, it actually begins with your upper limb dissections, okay? So the region of the upper limb has been divided into further divided into the regions. We have the arm, the forearm, the hand. The front over here is the shoulder region. The front of the shoulder region is the pectoral region, which has already been covered in the last class. And the back of the shoulder region that we have here is the scapular region. You read about the clavicle bone, the clavicle here, okay? The clavicle, and today we are going to be doing today we will be doing the scapula. All right. I hope you were clear about you read what was taught to you in the last class. See, these are the bones of the upper limb here. This is the scapula, which is more posterolaterally placed. The anterior bone over here is the clavicle, has the two ends, the sternal end and the acromial end. The sternal end, this is a medial end or this is a lateral end. The sternal end articulating with the sternum, sternal end of the manubrium sterni, and this is the end, the lateral end articulating with the acromial process of the scapula. You saw the structures here from the anterior aspect, but if you guys just view, I'll be talking all the things separately also, but tries to figure out that we have See, we have the rib cage here, the thorax. Okay, this bone, the scapula, this is a flat triangular bone which is lying on a more posterolateral plane. I'll be showing you. This is lying on a more, this is the posterior side, it is lying on the more posterolateral plane, and if you see, this would be the anterior surface. You cannot see it from here because this is behind the rib cage here, and you see the dorsal surface here. All right, see, appreciate this part. Okay, got it? I'll be showing you. Now if you guys just turn on to my screen where I would be showing you the bone as such. Are you able to see the bone in my hands?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So do I need to take it a bit up or something? I'm not sure if, is this plane fine with you? Or do I need to move it a bit up?
Little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect?
No, not that. Yes.
Because I don't know how is it visible to you guys. Is it visible to you now?
Little more up.
Little more up. Is it fine? Is it fine? I need the reply.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now it's
Perfect. So this you can see, this is the scapula. This is a triangular bone. Okay, what type of a bone was clavicle? What type of a bone was? Yeah. So what?
long bone.
Horizontally placed. Yeah. Good. So this bone is actually a flat bone. It is positioned like this. It has a craniocaudal axis, but this is a flat bone. Okay. This bone is actually, it lies posterolateral, as you can see over here. It is lying posterolateral to the costal margins. Costa is the word that you use for the ribs. These are the ribs, and these red marked over here anteriorly. These are all your the ribs, as we say the costa. The costal margins, it lies posterolateral to the ribs over here. Okay, so this is the surface, anteriorly placed surface. It has the anteriorly placed surface, which is the costal surface. Obviously the ribs have an outer convexity. Okay, you would know that. Okay, the ribs have an outer convexity, and so this surface has to be concave. We are going into the details of the surfaces again, but the anterior surface is the costal, it is not exactly anterior, it is positioned anteromedial. When I said it is the scapula is positioned posterolateral to the costal margins, to the ribs over here, the posterolateral. So this costal surface will be placed anteromedial. See, मैंने इसको ऐसे नहीं पकड़ा flat here. I am taking it a bit like this. All right. So because this is placed anteromedial, here would be the costal margins, the rib cage here. It is posterolateral on the rib cage. This has a shallow concavity. On the contrary, the other surface which you see here, on the posterior aspect, this is the dorsal surface of the scapula. Okay. Very clearly, if you see, आपको पढ़ा था आपने क्लास में that the clavicle, this is a medial or the sternal end of the clavicle, this is the acromial end, and if you see, this is the spine of the scapula. Appreciate, this is the spine of the scapula. Are you able to see that? This is the spine of the scapula, very clearly appreciable on the dorsal aspect, which has, and this is the acromial process. The spine of the scapula has, on the lateral aspect, it expands into this. This is the acromion process. This is the facet where you had the articulation with the, which was articulating with the clavicle. Are you able to appreciate this facet? You had seen already, right? This is a tip of the, this is the acromion process articulating with the, your clavicle. All right. And okay, so whenever it is pertinent that for any bone demonstrations, we need to know, मैंने ये bone पकड़ा है, I know I need to see that which is the side of the bone that I am holding onto. Okay, why am I holding in the left hand? Obviously मैंने देखा होगा, but I need to see मैंने इसको ऐसे क्यों नहीं पकड़ा. You can see that the scapula is articulating with two bones, the clavicle here, and on the lateral aspect it is articulating with this bone. Which is this bone?
Humerus.
Yeah, this is the humerus. This is the scapula. It is articulating on the lateral aspect with this bone, which is your the humerus. Can you mute your audios, please? See, can you appreciate? This is the humerus bone, and this is my scapula. It is articulating here with this bone. This is the humerus. This is actually the head of the humerus, and this is it is articulating with here the scapula, forming your gleno. This is a glenoid cavity of the scapula and the glenohumeral joint. All right, not going into the details of the joints at all, just with the bones. So on the lateral aspect, on the lateral aspect it is articulating with the humerus. So whenever, again coming back, whenever I have to talk about a bone, I'll talk about just the general features which I talked about, that this has two surfaces, the costal surface which has a concavity, it has a dorsal surface. If you see, it is a triangular bone. It has a base which is upper and the apex which is downwards. Two surfaces. It has three borders. This is a superior border. This is a medial border. This is a lateral border. I'll say why I am telling you about the medial and the lateral here. It has two surfaces, three borders, and three processes. We have the posteriorly placed the spine of the scapula. This is the acromion process here, and a beak shaped the coracoid process. Are you able to appreciate? I am holding from here. Are you able to appreciate the three processes of the scapula?
Yes.
Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
To you three? If you will say in between, then I'll again hold the board in position, because rest of the class I'm going to be taking on the PPT. All right? Just hang on for a minute. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have a probe here. So the surfaces, this is a costal surface, the dorsal surface here. I have three borders. The superior, the scapula is a triangular bone with the base or the superior, the base which is upwards and the apex which is below, and the three borders, the superior, the medial and the lateral. I'll tell you why it is medial and lateral. We'll come when we talk about this side. It has three processes. Alright. So this is the spine of the scapula. My voice is only echoing here with me. The spine of the scapula, the acromion process and the coracoid process. Whenever you have to determine the side of a bone, for the side of the bone, you need to have 6 cardinal features in point. We define the bone according to what is anterior, what is posterior. For the side determination, what is anterior, what is posterior, what is medial, lateral, and also what is anterior, posterior, superior, inferior, medial, lateral, according to all the cardinal directions. Okay, so I said that for side determination, the costal surface should be anteriorly, and it's more anteromedial. The dorsal surface should be posterior, which has the spine. Okay, the superiorly it is triangular, it has a base. The superior, it is flattened, the base would be upper superiorly. Inferiorly we have the inferior angle of the scapula is inferior, and on the lateral side this is the lateral angle, this is the end, this is the lateral side which has your glenoid cavity. This glenoid cavity, if you appreciate, it is directed upwards. Okay, the glenoid cavity with the acromion and the coracoid, they are on the lateral side. This is a lateral end. Okay, so if I am holding now, I am holding it on the left side. This makes this bone of the left side. Why of the left side? if I keep it here, if I'm holding it on the right side, if I take the lateral to the right side, then my dorsal surface comes anteriorly, right? So, you know, are you able to figure out how I'm determining the side? It is easy for the scapula, very easy, because you have the lateral end here, lateral angle, where we have your glenoid, the acromion and the coracoid. We have the anterior and the posterior. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So once you have determined the side of a bone, okay, whenever you're going to be talking about the osteology classes, whenever you're demonstrating a bone, whenever it's any idea, anytime, you just have to hold the bone in the anatomical position. The basic anatomical position, it is well seen over here in these images, right? Right? For holding the bone in the anatomical position now, I told you that this is the anterior surface, the costal surface, you have to face it like this, but the concave costal surface is directed anteromedially, okay, just have to hold it like this, while the glenoid cavity is directed, see, this is a glenoid cavity on the lateral side, okay, the glenoid cavity has to articulate it with the humerus. This glenoid cavity, it is directed upwards, see. Can you appreciate? If I'm holding the bone scapula so that the costal surface is facing anteromedially, if I consider this as the midline here, this would face anteromedially, and the glenoid cavity is directed upwards. It is pointing, if you see, can you appreciate here? It is projecting towards upwards, it is lateral, and it is also forwards. The medial end is, the medial border goes on a more posterior plane, certainly. Alright, the lateral border goes on a more anterior plane. Alright, okay. So again the same thing, we divide the shoulder region as shoulder joint, pectoral region, which you have seen. Axilla will be dealt in the subsequent class, and we will be doing the scapular region today. Is it clear? Okay. So now coming back to our main thing here, it's again a little reverberation of what we said. The scapula, yes, we have the shoulder region and we have the shoulder girdle. Shoulder girdle is something that it comprises of two bones, your scapula and the clavicle. These two bones, they comprise the shoulder girdle. The scapula, if we see from the anterior aspect, the scapula is positioned on a posterolateral plane to the rib cage, okay, and this is seen from the posterior surface. Another thing here now, another very important thing, that when we are making the when we are holding, when in the anatomical position in the body, how is the scapula dispersed? In the anatomical position, I said that costal margin, it is the costal surface is facing anteromedial. But what else is there that needs to be seen? Okay, in the human body, can you appreciate again that this is the dorsal surface which is posterolateral, the costal surface is anteromedial. This is the spine of the scapula, जो दिखाया था. You have the acromion, and over here is the coracoid. This is the spine of the scapula is at the level of the spine of the T3 vertebra. This over here, okay. This is the inferior angle. Inferior angle is at the level of the spine of the T7 vertebra. If you see here that we have the ribs, this is the first rib, second, third, fourth. So this is a T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6. T3 till the level of the T3, the spine of the T3 vertebra corresponds to the spine of the scapula corresponds to the spine of the T3 vertebra, and the inferior angle of the scapula corresponds to the T7 vertebra. Also, the scapula, it is positioned, one thing I'm so sorry, very important thing, I don't know how I missed. It is positioned on the posterolateral plane, but it is in relation to your second to seventh ribs. I'm so sorry, this was the most important. I explained all the thing. This is in relation to your second to seventh ribs on the it is related to the second to the seventh ribs here. All right. Okay. And in anatomical position, the medial border of the scapula, this is a medial border, this over here is the lateral border. The medial border of the scapula will form approximate 3 to 5 degree angle with the over here from the parasagittal plane here, from the vertical plane. Okay. Appreciate the scapula from the lateral aspect also. This is a glenoid cavity which would be directed upwards, forwards and laterally in the anatomical position. Yeah. So coming back to the same thing here, there are certain vertebral levels that we need to know. We need to remember, as I said again, the scapular spine, the spine of the scapula is at the level of the T3 spinous process. The inferior angle of the scapula is at the level of the T7 spinous process. These are important levels which you need to know. The spines of all the cervical vertebrae, they are not very prominent, but when you will dissect the neck region, you will see a very prominent spine. In fact, you try to palpate your own necks behind, you see a very prominent projection behind the neck, behind your neck. Can you try to do that? That prominence is actually the vertebra prominence. This is a spine of the C7 vertebra. Are you able to feel the your vertebra prominence? The spine of the C7 vertebra? This is that elevation, that prominence is the spine of the C7 vertebra. All the cervical vertebra, they have bifid spine. The spines are not prominent, but it is just the spine of the C7 vertebra which is prominent. Okay, and from this is how you can see that also. After you palpate your C7 vertebra, that is the vertebra prominence, the vertebra below are going to be T1, T2 and subsequently the ribs are there. Alright. So at the level of T3, again repeating, you have the spine of the scapula lies at the level of the T3 vertebra, inferior angle lies at the level of T7 vertebra. In the anatomical position, the ribs are positioned posterolaterally. The scapula is positioned posterolaterally to the rib cage, extends from the second to the seventh ribs. On the level is second to the seventh ribs. All right, and see, there is the medial border is at a little anteriorly, just 3 to 5 degree of angle it goes anteriorly. This is the T12 spinous process. Okay, we have the hip bones here. You're not done because this will be done later, but just passing by note. This is the iliac crest, the upper prominent rounded border of the hip bone over here, and the upper margin of the iliac crest, it lies at the level of the L4 vertebra. And when we see the back region, you have the anyways, I'll not be talking about this here, not to confuse you guys, all these points. We can move ahead. Okay, so again, the shoulder girdle will comprise of your clavicle and the scapula. All right. See, this is the C1 vertebra, the C2 vertebra, and subsequent down C2, 3, C3, 4, 5, and these are this is how you view the shoulder girdle. Sorry. This is how you are going to be viewing your shoulder girdle from superiorly. Can you appreciate that there is a certain angle by which the clavicle and the scapula are subtended? Can you appreciate this? The clavicle and the scapula, they are not positioned exactly in the same plane. See, the clavicle is positioned from, it goes the the sternal end of the clavicle is anteriorly because it has to articulate with the manubrium sterni, and the clavicular end it goes behind because the acromial end of this clavicle goes behind, it has to articulate with the acromial process of the scapula, forming here the acromioclavicular joint. This is important that this is at an angle of 60 degrees, the clavicle and the scapula. Also another angle that your scapula makes an angle of approximately, how the scapula is positioned behind on the posterolateral aspect, it makes an angle of 30 degrees with the coronal plane. Got it? Okay, this was shown in the last lecture also, but why I am showing you now is when they were quadrupeds, when in process of evolution, what happened was that the scapula, it actually sorry, I should be telling you this here. The scapula actually came from a more posterior to the more lateral plane. Um, uh, The scapula actually moved to a more lateral plane. Why? So that you have more of free movements of the upper limb, to subtend more movements at the upper limb at the from the lateral side. Okay, and this is the image which is showing you. This is the part of the pelvic girdle. I've kept it labeled here. This is how will you have two girdles. You have shoulder girdle in the upper limbs and the pelvic girdle for the lower limb part. If you shoulder girdle, the clavicle and the scapula itself, these are the hip bones, and this bone over here, this not this bone, the pelvic girdle will comprise not only of the hip bone, but also the hip bones are articulating in the middle with the sacrum. Okay, so hip bone is articulating with the sacrum at the sacroiliac joints. Okay, and if you would appreciate that the hip bone and the pelvic girdle is actually a complete ring. The hip bones with the sacrum, they form a complete ring. So the range of movement or the limbs is limited. It will have limited mobility. Once you have one lower limb suffered, it will affect the mobility of the other lower limb as well. But we just have the two scapulae, they are not connected to each other posteriorly. The shoulder girdles, that is why the movement of one upper limb is separate from the movement or independent of the movements of the other upper limb as such. Okay. These are only the pectoral girdle is connected, or we can say the shoulder or the shoulder girdle is connected only anteriorly through the clavicle with the sternum, and while posteriorly the scapula is not articulating with any bone in the on the posterior aspect, that is, it is forming an incomplete ring, while the pelvic girdle forms a complete ring. This complete formation of the complete ring in the pelvic girdle will call for a limited mobility as well as compared to the upper limb. So I hope you were clear a bit about the bone by seeing it. Should I just proceed with doing the PPT itself? On the PPT, able to appreciate the costal and the dorsal surfaces? Now you'd say that why I kept the bone like this. This is again this is the same bone. This is the left scapula. Obviously I've held it like this because this is on the left side, the costal surface, and dorsal surface goes here. The axes have been marked. Appreciate now sorry, the costal surface. The costal surface has just hold on for a second. I'll just take a sip of water. Just hang on. So the costal surface of the scapula, it is a shallow concavity. This fossa over here, this is known as the subscapular fossa. As the name says, the subscapular fossa is the fossa. Why? Because the subscapularis muscle is attached here. Okay. Come on to the screen again. Come on to my screen again. I'll show you the bone. Okay. So here goes the bone again. If you just appreciate here, this is the concave, the subscapular fossa anteriorly over here. Can you see appreciate the ridges here on the bone? Is it visible? Are you able to appreciate these ridges? It can be seen in the PPT as well. These ridges are where the intermuscular septa of the subscapularis muscle are attached. Is it appreciable to you guys? Are you able to see my screen? I've focused on the bone again.
Yes, ma'am.
Alright. So are you able to appreciate these ridges here? These 4 to 5 ridges are over here. Visible? You can just text back. Okay. So these
Yes,
are the ridges here. These are the ridges because of the subscapularis muscle is quite adherently attached over here to the costal surface, and these are the ridges where the intermuscular septa of the subscapularis muscle is attached. So where there are ridges, it leaves the bone into further deepened areas. These are the smooth areas in between. Well, these ridges, they are more roughened. These are roughened ridges, a little elevated. These are concavities in between these ridges. They are a little more smoother as compared to the same. Okay, so yeah, and can you appreciate that there is a thickened ridge on the towards the lateral border on the costal surface? There is a thickened longitudinal ridge here. Can you appreciate this longitudinal ridge? So there is a thickened longitudinal ridge over the anterior or over the costal surface. This ridge is more prominent where it is near the glenoid cavity, okay, and this ridge is fading below. This is a thickened longitudinal ridge from this craniocaudal towards the lateral border. There is a thickened longitudinal ridge, and next to the longitudinal ridge there is a groove. Can you appreciate this groove also here? There is a ridge. First of all, I talked about the subscapular fossa itself, which has your ridges in between. Between the ridges, there are smooth areas. These are concave areas. Okay. The ridges are where the intermuscular septa of the subscapularis muscle are attached. There is a longitudinal ridge extending from below the. Oh, sorry. Yes, I missed one more thing. I missed talking about the neck of the scapula. I'll talk about it later, but this is the neck of the scapula, which is all around. This is the glenoid cavity, the coracoid. This is the neck of the scapula. I'll come over with it again when I talk about the glenoid tubercles. Okay. So, sorry. This is the thickened longitudinal ridge, which is more distinct in the upper side as compared to the lower part. And there is a groove, which is next to your thickened longitudinal ridge. Okay, so basically the subscapularis muscle, मैं muscle insertions बाद में भी बताऊंगी, but just a passing by note that the subscapularis muscle is attached towards the subscapular fossa and also extends on to this grooved area which is next to your longitudinal ridge. Also, it extends here as well. All right. Okay. So there's not much about there is a roughened area, this strip over here towards the medial border, the costal surface here, it has a concavity near the medial border also, and towards the inferior angle. This is the inferior angle, this is the medial border of the scapula. Okay, there is another roughened area. This is for attachment of another muscle, which is your serratus anterior. Okay, and this is the medial border over here is thickened. This is thickened over here. The ventral aspect of the medial border. Mind you, the medial border is here. I'll have the ventral aspect and the dorsal aspect. Okay, the ventral aspect, that is the costal surface, it is thickened near the medial border here as well. Okay, for attachment of another muscle. And when we see the dorsal surface देखें तो dorsal surface has the characteristics, the spine of the scapula. If you see the spine of the scapula, it is dividing the dorsal surface into two fossae. Unlike there was a subscapular fossa here, there are two fossae here. The spine of the scapula dividing this into a supraspinous fossa, supra above the spine, and an infraspinous fossa. And as the name says, this was subscapular fossa, subscapularis muscle. This is the supraspinous, spine के ऊपर, above the level of spine. This is the supraspinous fossa. and below the level of spine, this is your infraspinous fossa. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay, I'll move. Okay, the subscapular fossa on the bone. So, Manet, this is the subscapular fossa. Okay, subscapular fossa. This is the costal surface. This is the dorsal surface. Costal surface is concave. Okay, the fossa is complete. This complete fossa. This is a subscapular fossa. The subscapularis muscle.
Extend one lies, no?
Sorry.
It's not just a point, no?
No. Yeah, it extends quite a bit. It is not a point. This whole area, this.
Cavity only, okay.
Yeah. This is a whole subscapular fossa. The subscapularis muscle, I'll talk about the extent where all the subscapularis is attached. पूरे fossa में subscapularis नहीं है. We'll talk about this when I talk about the muscle attachment later. ठीक है? अभी just to give you a little the general overview of how the muscle is. What are the features on the muscle? What are the surfaces? What are the features of one particular surface? Okay. So the subscapular fossa is the complete fossa.
Yes.
Concave है, so it becomes a whole fossa here, which has ridges. Why are these ridges here? Ridges पता लग रहा है ना यहाँ से वीडियो में? Sorry, कैमरा से?
Yes.
Yeah. So these are the ridges here. क्यों होंगी ridges? Because this is where the intermuscular septa of the subscapularis muscle is attached. All right. और ridges के बीच में there are going to be the concave smooth areas here. ठीक है? The smooth areas in between the ridges. ये ridge है, ऊपर ridge आया, बीच वाला area will be smoother. There is a longitudinal ridge extending from below your glenoid cavity margin to the inferior side. This is more prominent on the upper side. Ridge पता लग रहा है? So this is more prominent on the upper side but fades below where it goes towards the fades inferiorly. Next to the ridge there is a grooved area. Okay, this is all towards the lateral border. So mind you, the lateral border is not this. The lateral border is this. ठीक है? ये जो longitudinal ridge है, this longitudinal ridge is on the ventral side, is on the costal surface. There is a grooved area which is next to the costal surface. Are you able to see this clearly? Okay. I don't know if everybody will be able to reply or not, but yeah. ठीक है? Longitudinal ridge is on the costal surface, is a grooved area which is next, and the lateral border becomes here. So coming on to the the dorsal surface. The dorsal surface has the characteristic, the spine of the scapula, the spine of this. I'll talk about the glenoid cavity in detail later. Okay? Abhi when I am coming on to the angles and all that, मैं बताऊंगी दोबारा. So yeah dear, it is more thicker than the medial border, but ये जो longitudinal ridge है, this is on the anterior aspect. The lateral border is this. I'll talk about the borders. Okay, I'm just talking about the surface. This is the lateral border. ये thick है as compared to the medial border here. Okay, so the dorsal surface is divided by the spine of the scapula divides the dorsal border into a supraspinous fossa here and one infraspinous fossa here. Okay, so the supraspinous fossa and the infraspinous fossa, they are communicating with each other. Just follow my finger. My finger is at the supraspinous fossa and here at the infraspinous. The supraspinous fossa, they communicate with each other at a notch. This is your, are you able to see how my finger is turning around? This is your spinoglenoid notch. क्यों बोला मैंने इसको spinoglenoid? Because this is between the spine of the scapula and the glenoid. This is the glenoid cavity. This is a pear-shaped cavity. Okay, with the pointed end, the apex is मतलब broad area below and the conical end above. This is the spinoglenoid notch. The supraspinous fossa, the infraspinous fossa and they communicate laterally with each other at this notch. This is a smooth, thickened smooth notch here. This is the spinoglenoid notch between the spine of the scapula and the glenoid cavity. Okay, clear? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So if you see the dorsal surface, this is a complete dorsal surface again. This is the infraspinous fossa. This is a lateral border. The lateral border has a roughened strip here. There is a strip of bone at the lateral border. This is for the muscle attachment here. Are you able to see the strip here? This is a roughened strip here. Okay. Are you clear with that? Okay, now let's come on to the PPT itself. Can you come back to the PPT? Yeah. So the same thing here. If you see the dorsal, if you see the costal surface here, this is a longitudinal ridge. See, this is on the ventral aspect. It is extending below the region of the neck. This is a neck of the scapula. Okay. This is below the region of the neck of the scapula. This is a ridge, faints below, distinct above. This whole ventral aspect of the medial border is also thickened. The dorsal surface has the spine of the scapula dividing into supra and the infraspinous. This area is distinct. This is thickened here because of any area which is thickened is because of the attachment of sorry, not that ways, but yeah. It's not moving. Okay. We have the superior, medial and the lateral borders. The superior border of the scapula here, this is a lateral border of the scapula and this is a medial border of the scapula. I think I'll need to go back to the screen itself, my screen. We'll talk about the borders again, dear.
Both can be visible at the same time.
Are you able to see me? But my camera is off.
No, I'm saying that if you switch on your camera, the PPT won't.
Alright, perfect. Whatever, if you want to switch, you can. ठीक है? वैसे मैंने PPT में ज़्यादा कुछ लिखा नहीं हुआ. I just have images there because I'll speak.
We can see both.
Perfect. So yeah. So
Dr. Vidhu, can you play the video? Dr. Vidhu, can you play the video now? Because
Sure.
that will give them a proper perspective.
All
the
right,
video
ma'am.
of the scapula.
all right, ma'am.
Just minimize the PPT and just project the video. Open the video and project it. Because that will give them a proper perspective. It's easier for you to describe on that.
Yeah. All right. So can you see the scapula again here? See, this is the dorsal surface, the costal surface of the scapula. It has been zoomed in. This is a longitudinal ridge extending below. Okay, this is a subscapular fossa, and these are the ridges on the subscapular fossa because of attachment of the intermuscular septa, and these are concave, these are the smooth surfaces here. The ventral aspect of the medial border is roughened because of attachment of muscles, and this is the longitudinal ridge. Next to it was a grooved area. ठीक है? And this is the coracoid process, the superior border, the medial border and the lateral border here. The superior border, if you see, it has a notch. This is the suprascapular notch. Now this is, if you see, is a coracoid process. This is the base of the coracoid process. This suprascapular notch is on the superior border of the scapula next to the base of the coracoid process, medial to the base of the coracoid process. This is a suprascapular notch, As we say suprascapular notch, this is for the passage of the suprascapular nerves and vessels. And it is actually, there is a suprascapular ligament here which connects this part, the part of the superior border of the scapula and the base of the coracoid process. There is a ligament here, the suprascapular ligament, which actually makes it a foramen, the suprascapular canal, where the suprascapular nerves and vessels would pass below. The suprascapular nerves and vessels are related here, and sometimes this ligament can ossify. It would turn it into a foramen also. In some of the scapular bones, you will see a foramen here when the suprascapular ligament is ossified. Okay, so again you see that near the inferior angle, the costal surface, again the subscapular fossa, the medial and the lateral longitudinal ridge, the grooved area, and near the inferior angle also we have a roughened area here. Okay, see the video again. This is just fixed on this for a while. So when we talk about, I said we have the superior border, we have the medial border and the lateral border of the scapula. There are three angles of the scapula. I'll hold on the screen video here. If this is the inferior angle of the scapula lying at the level of T7, this is the superior angle of the scapula. This is at the level of T2, the superior angle of the scapula. Okay? And this would be the lateral angle of the scapula, comprising of the glenoid and the coracoid and acromion, where the lateral border is converging here at the glenoid. This is a lateral angle of the scapula, this is a medial angle, and this over here is the inferior angle of the scapula. Appreciate the in this view only, appreciate the medial border. Can you see that the medial border is having a little angle here? It is a little angled here. We'll appreciate more when we see the dorsal aspect of the bone also. See the coracoid process. The glenoid cavity in the anatomical position is directed upwards, forwards and laterally. Now just going back, the longitudinal ridge, and this is a grooved area that I spoke about. Okay. Oh. I'm missing another point. This is the acromion process over here. The acromion process lies at a higher level as compared to the coracoid process, and the glenoid below with the acromion process is at a higher level. From the coming back here, this was a grooved area, right? This is the lateral border, extent of the complete lateral border here. Okay. Now this over here, he has shown you the dorsal surface. The dorsal surface has the spine of the scapula. The spine of the scapula, it has the apex and the base at the lateral, towards the lateral end of the lateral angle of the scapula is the base. This is the apex of the spine of the scapula. The spine of the scapula will have a superior surface and the inferior surface. Okay? The superior surface is towards your supraspinous fossa. The spine of the scapula is a shelf-like projection. Okay? The shelf-like projection which has a superior surface, the inferior surface, it has an apex and a base. Over here, this prominence, if you palpate, आप अपने ही body में देखेंगे, what you can palpate easily is the spine of the scapula. This is the spine of the scapula. What is prominent is the crest of the spine of the scapula, which you can palpate. The crest of the spine of the scapula, if you see, this is the upper border of the crest of the spine of the scapula, and this happens to be the lower border of the crest of spine of scapula. ठीक है? And आप देखेंगे at the lateral side, the spine is continuing upward. The acromia is an upward extension of the from the spine of the scapula. ठीक है? Such that it is the lower border of the crest of the spine of the scapula, it continues with the lateral border of the acromion process, and over here you have the upper border of the spine of the scapula will continue as the medial border of the acromion process. ठीक है? On the dorsal aspect, what I talked about was your supraspinous fossa and the infraspinous fossa. Infraspinous fossa is for the attachment of the infraspinatus muscle, and the supraspinous fossa for the attachment of the supraspinatus muscle. We'll see it in great detail. Also, towards towards the lateral end, can you see this roughened strip of bone on the dorsal aspect of the lateral border? Appreciate, I'll talk about this later. There's a roughened strip of bone on the dorsal aspect of the lateral border here. ठीक है? See this is the inferior surface of the spine of the scapula. You can see, you see here the spinoglenoid notch. If you see the extent, the supraspinous fossa communicating with the infraspinous fossa through the spinoglenoid notch. Okay, just going back, this is the spinoglenoid notch. Okay. Okay, now very clear here. See, this is the crest of the spine of the scapula. As I said, the upper border and the lower border. The acromion, this is the acromion process, the coracoid process, as you can see here. The acromion process is it projects forwards as a flattened plate from the lateral end of the spine. This is the spine, this is the lateral end of the spine. पीछे भी देखें तो यहाँ पे भी clear दिख रहा था. This is the lateral end of the spine. The acromion is projecting forwards as a flattened plate from the lateral end of the spine of the scapula. Okay, this has and it is a flattened point projecting forwards, and see this over here, acromion is overhanging. It projects above, overhangs the glenoid cavity. Got it? यहाँ से दिखेगा नहीं, but if you see back, see this acromion process is overhanging over the glenoid cavity. So the upper border of the spine is continuing as a medial border of the acromion process. The lateral border of the lower border of the spine of the scapula is continuing with the lateral border of the acromion process at the acromion angle. ठीक है? So or you can say that this is the tip of the acromion process. This is the lateral border, this is the acromion process. You can say that the lateral border is extending from the tip of the acromion process, and at the acromion angle it is extending with the lower border of the spine of the scapula. Okay, clear? Tip of the spine, near the tip of the spine you have the clavicular facet of the acromion. Am I clear on this part with you guys? See the acromion angle, the tip of the acromion, and over here you have the clavicular facet for the articulation with the clavicle, forming the acromioclavicular joint. Over here the clavicle is going to be articulating with the acromion process, forming the acromioclavicular joint. The acromion process, it has a higher level as compared to the glenoid cavity and also the coracoid. this horizontal plate is इतना clear नहीं है यहाँ पे, but the under surface of this acromion process, it there is you had read in the last class. I'm not going to go into the detail of the ligaments as such, but the tip of the acromion process, below the it gives attachment to the coracoacromial ligament. Okay, so the undersurface of the acromion process, the surface which is below, let me see if I can show you. The surface of the acromion, the under surface, that the inferior surface of the acromion process is flattened plane. This has an upper surface, superior surface. This would be the inferior surface. The under surface of the acromion process, or like along with the coracoacromial ligament from the coracoid process to the acromion process, and the coracoid process. Coracoid process, ठीक है? It form these things they form the coracoacromial arch. Okay, so the undersurface of your acromion process, the coracoacromial ligament, and this horizontal pass of the coracoid, they form the complete coracoacromial arch, which like a it is a protection. This is the one which is providing, पूरा arch बन जाएगा ऐसे, which will provide protection to your shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint. This is the glenoid cavity, the pear-shaped glenoid cavity for articulation with the head of the humerus. This is a shallow glenoid cavity. The complete head of the humerus will not fit into the glenoid cavity, the glenoid fossa. So below at this level, if we have the shoulder joint forming here, there is an arch which is here, the undersurface of the acromion process, the coracoid process, and the coracoacromial ligament. They form the complete coracoacromial arch. Okay, am I clear with this? Can anyone reply back or put the audio if you all are clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
thank you. Okay, appreciate again the coracoid process here. Coracoid process is like a bent finger, okay, hook-like complex which is projecting upwards from the lateral part. This is the lateral part. The projection of the coracoid process, it goes a little upwards. जैसे हम बोलेंगे the acromion projects forwards, and this both of them are upward, but coracoid का necessarily it is a finger-like bent finger-like process from the lateral part of the superior border. See, the superior border, again I said, it extends from the superior angle of the scapula. It has a suprascapular notch. It extends from the superior, this coracoid process, it is extending bent finger which is projecting forwards. It projects forwards from the superior border of the scapula above the glenoid cavity. यहाँ पे देखो, even the coracoid process, the level of the coracoid process was at a higher level as compared to the as the glenoid cavity. That is how the undersurface of acromion with the coracoid process, the coracoclavicular ligament, they'll form the coracoacromial arch, which will give a protection to your shoulder joint. Okay. Okay. आपको क्लास में लास्ट टाइम बताया था that how you can actually see your you trace the clavicular subcutaneous and whole extent. You go towards the lateral extent of the clavicle. There's a intermittent सा ना थोड़ा सा आपका deep सा dip आएगा that actually demarcates the acromioclavicular joint. That you can actually feel the acromioclavicular joint in your own body. Can you try to feel your clavicles? Go towards the lateral extent of the clavicle. Lateral extent of clavicle में जाओगे धीरे धीरे, then you'll feel a slight dip. That dip actually marks your acromioclavicular joint. That slight dip over there. उसके आगे over there you can feel your acromion process. It is palpable. The acromion is palpable, and also below that particular area, just approximately 2 centimeters below this, go inferiorly to the acromioclavicular, just go inferiorly to the deeper plane, you can feel the coracoid process as well. ठीक है? That is the tip of the deltoid coracoid process. It is almost 2 to 2.5 centimeters below the clavicle. Okay. So now you appreciate the coracoid process here. देखो coracoid process को it has a horizontal part and a vertical part. Okay. So the vertical part. Are you able to appreciate that this would be the vertical part here, or do I need to move it like this? This bent finger, you try to bend your finger, your bent finger will also have a vertical and a horizontal part. Okay? That is why we say the coracoid is shaped like a bent finger which has a horizontal part and a vertical part. Understandable? That this would be the vertical part of the coracoid and this would be the horizontal part of the coracoid. There is a there are certain features over the coracoid which I want to show. Let me see if you can see in the video here. At the junction of your horizontal and the vertical part on the dorsal aspect, there is a tubercle. This is a conoid tubercle at the junction of the horizontal and the vertical part. Okay? If we appreciate the coracoid process, it also will have a the coracoid process will have a superior surface and the inferior surface. This would be the superior surface, the inferior surface. Okay. Ma'am, I would like to go back to showing it over here.
Please do, please do. They needed a perspective actually initially.
Yes, ma'am. That is more clear how it is revolving around.
Make it easier.
Hanji, ma'am.
Do go back. And then I think you can wind up with the scapula.
Yes, ma'am.
And start with the scapula.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. See here again. Able to appreciate. See. So the supraspinous, infraspinous, the spine of the scapula. It has your the apex, the base here, your the crest of the spine of the scapula, which has an upper border continuing with the medial border of the acromion. Okay? Acromion is a plate-like flattened plate projection projecting forwards. ये देखो, it is projecting forwards. It's plate-like projection, right? So it has an upper surface, inferior surface, superior surface, inferior surface. It will have a lateral border. There is a medial border of the acromion, the lateral border. The lateral border is from the apex of the acromion, continues with the lower border of the crest of the spine at the acromion angle. This is the acromion angle, and the medial border of the acromion continuing with the upper border of the crest of the spine of the scapula. Okay, and see, that is what I meant about the undersurface of the acromion, the horizontal part of the coracoid, this part, and the coracoclavicular ligament. They form the coracoacromial arch. The coracoacromial arch, which lies above your glenoid cavity, above the level of the shoulder joint. The glenoid cavity pear shaped. Okay? The coracoid process, appreciate the superior border again. Superior border extending from the superior angle. It has a suprascapular fossa. It is a bent finger like projection from your at the lateral end of the superior border. This is projecting forwards, bent finger. Bend your finger, which will have a horizontal part and a vertical part. Okay? So this is the horizontal part of the coracoid process, and this smaller would be the vertical part. Over here we have the base of the coracoid process. Okay? Horizontal part, vertical part, the base. If we see, it has a superior surface, inferior surface of the coracoid, and placing the scapula in the, if I place the scapula in the anatomical position, there will be an anteromedial border and a posterolateral border. Okay, tip of the coracoid process, one thing which I wanted to show you here, the horizontal and the vertical parts of the coracoid, they meet on the dorsal aspect at this tubercle. This is the conoid tubercle. Okay. So you remember ma'am had spoken about the coracoacromial ligament. There were two parts, the conoid part and the trapezoid part. The conoid part of the coracoacromial ligament is attached over here at the conoid tubercle. This is the horizontal part, anatomical position में रखें तो horizontal and the vertical part which meet dorsally at this tubercle. This is the this over here is the conoid tubercle. Clear? Yeah.
Ma'am,
Because the screen was not projected at that time, I'd minimize the screen. Were you not able to see it in the video? When I was demonstrating the bone.
I was able to see. Ma'am, I had a doubt that does the scapula have a nutrient foramen?
It's not a long bone. The nutrient foramen will be the long bone, right? Okay. So, no, nutrient foramen will be there, but alright. So the costal surface and the dorsal surface so clear tha. The borders are superior, medial and lateral. Okay, the superior border sometimes can get, the suprascapular ligament which can become ossified from the suprascapular foramen. In some specimens you might see that. The processes are acromion, the spine of the scapula, and the coracoid process.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, beta.
What is that particular ligament that forms the coracoacromial arch?
The coracoacromial ligament.
Coracoacromial ligament,
The
right?
coracoacromial ligament from the coracoid process to the acromion process.
Okay, fine, ma'am. So, what is that? The lower part of acromial process, horizontal
No.
part of coracoid process.
No, I said
and
that.
the coracoacromial ligament
Yeah.
will form the coracoacromial
Acromial arch.
Am
Yes.
I right?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this is the spine, as you will see again. ये मैंने bone पे ही दिखा दिया है. We'll see it from the. I'll just brush up with this because हमने bone ही देख लिया है. This is how you see the scapula from the superior aspect. See, appreciate your coracoid, the acromion, the supraspinous, and the thing. I'll brush ahead. Again the costal. Now I'll come to a little bit about your muscle attachments here itself. The subscapular fossa, as I said, was as it's according to the name, it gives attachment to the subscapularis muscle. If you appreciate, these are the ridges on the bone with the concave surfaces on the bone itself. The ridges where the intermuscular septa are attached. The subscapularis muscle is attached on the whole extent of the subscapular fossa except the region near the neck of the scapula below the glenoid cavity. It takes origin from the whole. It even takes origin from this longitudinal ridge from the superior to the inferior part. At the superior extent the ridge was more prominent, and the attachment of the subscapularis is even extending to the groove which was, see, I showed you this groove which is next to the longitudinal ridge, right? Okay. So I showed you one area when I was talking about the ventral surface. I talked that the medial border on the ventral aspect is thicker because roughened because of the attachment of a muscle. This gives attachment in the whole extent to the serratus anterior muscle. When we see near the inferior angle, this is more thickened because the lower 5 to 6 strips of the serratus anterior muscle, they are taking attachment from this area, roughened area near the inferior angle of the scapula, and till the little can you appreciate the medial border has a little angulature here? Till the angle it gives attachment, and the area which is above the gives attachment to the entire first lip, and rest of the serratus anterior muscle it is attaching here on the ventral aspect of the medial border. The tip of the coracoid process is giving attachment to both the biceps and the coracobrachialis muscle. You'll read with the arm region. and the pectoralis minor muscle is attached on the superior aspect of the coracoid. I'll talk about the attachments of the deltoid and the trapezius later, not from here. And oh, I missed talking about one very important thing, guys. If we, can you just see my screen again? I'm sorry for this. We have the glenoid cavity. There is a roughened triangular area over here. This is your infraglenoid tubercle, the glenoid cavity, and there is a supraglenoid tubercle above it. There is an infraglenoid tubercle here. The lateral border is sinuous in all extent. The medial border will have a little angulature, the superior border, and the lateral border here, it is a little sinuous. Can you appreciate? ये ऐसे करके ऐसे आके it is meeting near your. Can you appreciate this, beta? ये ऐसे करके आ रहा है ना, from here to here. It extends from below the level of the glenoid cavity. This is a triangular roughened area. This is the infraglenoid tubercle. Above the glenoid we have the supraglenoid tubercle. The lateral border over here, from the inferior limit of the infraglenoid tubercle, it extends at the sharpened prominence, this sharpened area next to that grooved area on the ventral aspect, and it is here, goes towards the medial border. This extent of the lateral border is a little sinuous, as we say. Okay. Okay. So this is showing the part of the infraglenoid tubercle here, which is giving attachment to the long head of the triceps. हम अगर ventrally देखेंगे तो थोड़ा सा part of long head of triceps also you will be able to visualize from here. थोड़ा मतलब part of on the bone you will able to appreciate the infraglenoid tubercle. Okay. Yeah. So this is on the cadaver, as you would see, the serratus anterior muscle taking origin from the outer aspect of the ribs. I'm not going to the detail of the attachment here. It is attaching to the whole medial aspect, the anterior aspect of the medial border of the scapula. अगर देखो ये पूरा extent दिखा रहा है from here to here. This shows a complete medial मतलब anterior costal surface. The subscapularis muscle, this is a complete subscapularis muscle attaching on the costal surface. Don't go into what is this is the triceps, ये पीछे, this is a glenoid cavity, the infraglenoid tubercle, the long head of the triceps. I'll come over to the teres later, but just appreciate the subscapularis and the serratus anterior, how they are placed. Another important thing here, आप इसको देखो ना, when we talk about the movements of the scapula, if you see the direction of these two muscles, we have subscapularis like this. I'm just making a passing by note here, and the direction of the serratus anterior. The serratus anterior, the if I make two arrows, मैं अगर दो arrows को opposite directed दिखाती हूँ, one arrow I point like this, oh sorry, and one arrow if I point like this, एक मैंने इधर बनाया, एक ऐसे बनाया. If something is pulling anteriorly, contract करके serratus इधर जाएगा, तो serratus when contract it will pull on one side and the subscapularis is going to be pulling on the other side. Getting my point? We'll talk about this when we talk about the muscle movements, the serratus and sorry, just forget this part. This is a statement. बाद में we'll talk about. ठीक है? Just appreciate subscapularis and serratus anterior. On the dorsal surface we have the spine. See the supraspinatus ligament, which is attached to the medial aspect. The medial 2/3 of the supraspinous fossa gives attachment to the supraspinatus muscle. The medial 2/3 of your infraspinatus fossa, again it is leaving the area near the glenoid. This is the infraspinatus muscle. And ये मैं आपको I want to show this over the bone as well, but just appreciate that this is and the inferior angle, the lateral and the lateral part. The lateral border gives attachment. The lateral aspect of the posterior border of the dorsal surface gives attachment to three muscles. These are the levator scapulae muscles, the rhomboideus minor muscle, and the rhomboideus major muscles. The three muscles attached here on the lateral side. Okay, मैंने अभी सिर्फ आपको 2 मसल्स बताई, ऑन द कॉस्टल सरफेस सबस्कैपुलारिस एंड ऑन द वेंट्रल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ द मीडियल बॉर्डर. व्हाट वाज द मसल आई टोल्ड? द सेराटस एंटीरियर मसल, है ना. ये सेराटस एंटीरियर सबस्कैपुलारिस यहाँ पे है, सेराटस एंटीरियर ऑन द वेंट्रल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ द मीडियल बॉर्डर. वैसे ही डोर्सल सरफेस पे देखें, वी हैव इंफ्रास्पाइनेटस, सुप्रास्पाइनेटस, and this will be the dorsal aspect of the medial border. The ventral aspect of the medial border has serratus. On the dorsal aspect it has 3 muscles, the levator scapulary, the rhomboideus minor and the rhomboideus major muscle. The rhomboideus minor muscle takes attachment from the lower part. This was the angle of the medial border, है ना. जो एंगल बन रहा था मीडियल बॉर्डर में, विच वॉज टूवर्ड्स द एपेक्स ऑफ द स्पाइन ऑफ द स्कैपुला. सॉरी, ये जो है, दिस इज योर स्पाइन ऑफ द स्कैपुला. नियर द स्पाइन यू हैव द rhomboideus minor muscle attachment. The area of the superior border from the superior angle till the angle of the medial border gives attachment to the levator scapulae, and the lower part on the dorsal aspect of the medial border is for the rhomboideus major muscle. ठीक है. There is this muscle which is the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is a big muscle. It is coming all the way from the trunk region, from the posterior abdominal wall. Sorry, the trunk wall. This is the latissimus dorsi muscle. It takes a passing by attachment from the inferior angle of the scapula. Are you clear? And then on the lateral side, of the dorsal surface gives attachment to another set of important muscle, the teres muscle. We have the teres minor muscle and the teres major muscle. ठीक है. इसके बारे में और हम आगे करेंगे. But I want to show on the bone one thing here again. इसको देखो यहाँ पे. When I talked about this ridge, beta, ridge के साथ I said there is a grooved area, right? Can you appreciate that this grooved area, I have this lateral border from the infraglenoid tubercle. Please see my screen where I am showing the bone. The grooved area, the longitudinal ridge, this is a lateral border from the infraglenoid tubercle, है ना. ये sinus border here, the lateral border, and this is the dorsal aspect. Okay, this is the dorsal aspect of, this is the dorsal surface. इसके dorsal aspect में can you see this rough and strip, है ना. There is this rough and strip here which is next to this grooved area. Please text and reply whether you are able to understand. There is a rough and strip of bone here on the dorsal aspect, okay, and there is an oblique ridge which is extending below. बेटा देखो इसको यहाँ पे. Are you able to appreciate this part? ये ridge, I talked about the longitudinal ridge on the ventral surface, a grooved area which is towards the lateral border. This is also on the ventral surface. Sorry, this is also on the ventral surface. Subscapularis कहाँ से ले रहा था? From the subscapularis fossa, subscapular fossa, from the longitudinal ridge and also from this grooved area, the subscapularis muscle. ओके, ये लैटरल बॉर्डर आया. लैटरल बॉर्डर के पीछे दिस इज द डोर्सल सरफेस. द डोर्सल सरफेस देखो, दिस इज हाउ आई एम व्यूइंग द स्कैपुला फ्रॉम द लैटरल एस्पेक्ट. ठीक है. अब क्या दिख रहा है मुझे? रिज के साथ ग्रूव्ड एरिया, लैटरल बॉर्डर एंड दिस रफ एंड स्ट्रिप. देयर इज दिस रफ एंड स्ट्रिप एंड एट द लोअर लिमिट ऑफ दिस रफ एंड स्ट्रिप देयर इज एन oblique ridge. Can you appreciate this oblique ridge, beta? This oblique ridge is extending towards the medial border. Okay, so this rough and strip is the one which is giving attachment to your teres minor muscle on the dorsal aspect, and this area, this roughened area which is separated from the dorsal surface by this oblique ridge which is extending from this strip, rough strip. Okay, देखो क्या दिखाया मैंने, फिर से बता रही हूँ. This was a longitudinal ridge. This was a grooved area. This is a lateral border. What you see from the lateral aspect of the scapula is this, ये. ठीक है. This is a इसको lateral column भी बोलते हैं हम यहाँ पे. This gives more sturdiness to your this thing. ठीक है. Longitudinal ridge, grooved area, border. There is a strip. There is this roughened strip on the dorsal aspect, and at the lower limb of this roughened strip, there is this oblique ridge which is extending towards the inferior angle. The infraspinous fossa, and this oblique ridge is separating the infraspinous fossa from the rest part of the dorsal surface. ठीक है. ये जो area आया, this is giving attachment to your teres major muscle. This rough strip posterior to on the posterior aspect near the lateral border was for the teres minor muscle. At the lower limit of this roughened strip, there is an oblique ridge which is extending till the inferior angle, making this roughened area. This is giving attachment to your teres major muscle. Now one thing important, if you just screen side by side, if you see my PPT as well, can you say that teres minor को दो जगह मैंने इसमें दिखाया हुआ है. Just see the screen back. Just see the PPT. Teres minor has been shown as 2. Does that mean it has 2 heads of teres minor? No. Why no? Because मैं अगर इस rough strip को feel करती हूँ, there is a slight groove here. Okay. Bone जब पकड़ोगे हाथ में तब देखना that see, ये मैं फिर से बोल रही हूँ, ridge है, groove है, border के साथ dorsal aspect पे there is this rough strip. Okay, ये rough जो strip आया, if I pass my finger like this, I'll see another grooved area. मैं यहाँ पे if I go down, there is a slight groove, छोटा सा groove है यहाँ पे. There is a groove on the bone on this rough strip. This is for the passage of some vessels. This is for the passage of circumflex scapular vessels. Okay, so ये जो circumflex scapular vessels हैं, जब ऐसे इन्होंने circle करके flex किया. Anything flexion is flex. Okay, so by the name it goes circumflex. So ये जो grooved area है, there is a slight groove on the strip which is for the passage of the circumflex scapular vessels. This is making the teres minor as distinct 2. Okay, so this groove is between the attachment of the teres minor. PPT देखो, this groove, the attachment has, this does not, teres minor doesn't have 2 heads. It appears 2 because of the passage of the circumflex scapular vessels. Okay, come back to the PPT again. See the PPT wala screen.
Just one intervention, Dr. Viju.
Yes, ma'am.
This flat strip of bone which joins the lateral border of the scapula on the dorsal aspect is actually smooth because fleshy muscles fibers are rising from it.
Oh, sorry, ma'am.
The area may be there at the inferior wall.
Yes.
At the inferior angle.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a flat piece of bone which gives attachment to the teres minor and the teres major, but this is fairly smooth.
Yes, ma'am.
Fleshy fibers are
Yes,
rising.
ma'am. Sorry, I said it wrong. It was just in a flow of rough and. Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the correction. So yeah, this is a strip of bone which is smooth. I'm sorry for that. Okay, this is smooth, but this is a roughened area here. Okay. So this was समझ आया, teres minor because of the circumflex scapular vessels. Now remember this name circumflex. Circumflex, surrounding the circumflex scapular, some vessel which will be related to the scapula is circumflex scapular. Similar type of vessels you will hear when you talk about the humerus. You will have about the circumflex humeral vessels also. Okay. So if you see the PPT again, if you see the PPT again, beta. Can you see that I'm again showing on the attachments of the on the bone, we have the upper border of the spine of the scapula. It is giving attachment to your trapezius muscle, and the lower border of the spine of the scapula along with the lateral border of the acromion in the whole extent is giving attachment to your deltoid muscle. ठीक है? We'll see it on the next slide as well. So if you see my screen also, you'll see that the lower border the lower border here along with the lower border along with the angle, and the lateral border of the spine will give the attachment to the deltoid, and the medial border of the acromion till your clavicular facet. Clavicular facet के आगे नहीं जाएगा ना, so over till here, from here, this gives attachment to the fibers of trapezius. All right. So that's how the muscles are going to be placed. Coming over, this is the dissection part. See that this is the latissimus dorsi muscle. This is a huge muscle which is extending from the spines of the T7, lower thoracic vertebra, and also the lumbar vertebra. This has a flattened, this is a latissimus dorsi muscle which is taking a fairly a smaller slip of attachment at the inferior angle of the scapula. If you see that this is how you are going to be see the muscles over the dorsal part. I'll talk about these. This is the orientation of the muscle. I'll be talking about separately in the another class also. Okay. Okay. This is the same thing. I've already talked about the spine from the superior aspect. Okay. Yes. If you see the spine from the superior aspect, yes. Now see. जब बताया था that the upper lip of the spine.
Ma'am,
Any question?
I have got a, yes, ma'am.
Can I just
when will the
resume
bone
with this? Can I just resume with this for a while, please? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, can you just follow up with this? Can you follow up
Okay.
with the bone? Can you follow up that I'm showing you the bone here? Yeah. Okay. So this was a medial border. See, अगर यहाँ से देखो, the trapezius is attached over here. See, this is the trapezius muscle is attached over here on the upper lip of the spine of the scapula. This was a part where we have the coracoid, the clavicle attachment forming the acromioclavicular joint. And see, this is the attachment of the trapezius. ये देखो. Trapezius is also attached to the posterior border of the lateral 1/3. This is sorry beta, see the PPT as well. See the PPT now. From the upper border of the spine of the scapula, this was a plate where the acromioclavicular joint is attached here. ठीक है? And from the trapezius is attached on the upper lip of the spine of the scapula and also on the lateral posterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. This is the whole extent of attachment of the trapezius muscle, while the deltoid is attached on the lower border of the spine of the scapula, acromial angle, the lateral border of the acromion, and also on the anterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. Okay. So the glenoid cavity, it is a fairly pear-shaped cavity, pointed above and broad below. It has a supraglenoid tubercle above, and this is an infraglenoid tubercle below from the lateral aspect. Okay. And the glenoid cavity is for the articulation with the head of the humerus. The glenoid cavity is actually a fairly shallow cavity. The complete head of the humerus does not articulate with the glenoid cavity as such, because the glenoid cavity is shallow. You'll be reading about the shoulder joint later, but just a passing by note that the cavity of any joint, the joint needs to be made deeper. उसको deep करना है so that the head of the humerus, this is a humerus bone, this is the head of the humerus, has to fit in. For fitting into the glenoid cavity, there is a glenoid labrum, which is there is a labrum, that is a glenoid labrum, which is attached, which it is at the margins of the glenoid cavity. Just hold on for a second. Just need some water. ठीक है, you'll talk in detail for the class. Okay, regarding the ossification of the bone, the scapula ossifies from 8 centers, out of which one is a primary center. The primary center, it actually appears for the body of the scapula, and the body of the scapula at around 8 weeks of intrauterine life. And basically the centers would appear for the body of the scapula. The primary center appears in the body of the scapula for the 8th intrauterine week, and the rest of the centers are all of the centers are the secondary centers. ठीक है? For the coracoid center, can you see there are all the coracoid centers, acromial centers and all that. The center for the coracoid process, that is the coracoid centers, it appears in the first year of life, and it joins with the whole body by 15 years of life, and rest of the centers of the scapula, they appear by puberty. Rest of the centers, as in we have the subcoracoid, there's a coracoid center, the main coracoid center, which is near the body, and the subcoracoid center, which is the part of the coracoid near the base, approximating the glenoid cavity, and they along with the center for the inferior angle, central for the glenoid cavity, and also the center for the complete medial border is the one which will appear by puberty. And even the distal and the proximal acromial centers, they appear later, and all the centers they fuse with the rest of the body by 20 years of age. Okay, I'll be taking the rest of the description further when with the another, because I hope we are clear with the bony part. Should we go with a small break if you want to assimilate the bone, or just move on to the scapular region as such?
Yes, give them a 5-minute break and then start with the scapular region.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, even I need a break. I'm falling short of breath.
It's 11:30 right now by your watch. It's exactly 11:30.
Yes, ma'am. But I'll do.
Or 11:33. So
ma'am,
can start. By my computer watch, it's 11:30.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
exactly 5 minutes from now.
Yes, ma'am. I dealt with part of the muscles over here, so maybe it will be easy for the next.
Yeah, that you. Yes. Now I think it's fairly clear the bone at least. Now we can do the scapular muscles.
Yes, ma'am.
You can start with the video if you like.
Yes, ma'am. I'm doing that. You minimize me.
Start with the video so that they have some idea, and then go on to the PPT.
When will a bone surface be smooth and when will it be rough?
It's rough when fibrous tissue in the form of tendons, aponeurosis, ligaments attach directly to the bone surface. And it's smooth where the reddish brown skeletal muscle attaches to the bone.
So the reddish brown skeletal muscle will not attach through any fibrous tissue?
No, it is directly the skeletal muscle fibers are attaching directly onto the bone. In
Right,
those
ma'am,
areas,
I can got it. Thank you, ma'am.
those areas.
Excuse me, ma'am. Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Ma'am, when the reddish skeletal muscles attach directly to the bone, then what will that connection be called?
There's a direct attachment of the muscle onto the bone. It's smooth there. And where the tendons and ligaments and the aponeurosis are attached, it's rough there. That's all. It's not a major.
So there is no. Okay. Okay, thank you,
It's
ma'am.
a flat bone adjoining the lateral on the dorsal surface of the scapula, which gives attachment to the teres minor and the teres major muscles. And there's an oblique ridge which divides the area. And as Dr. Vidhu very nicely described, the circumflex scapular vessels wind around and split the origin of the teres minor into two. These are not two separate heads, but it's one continuous muscle which is taking origin from the dorsal aspect. So you will see in the video how it looks.
Ma'am, so the smooth fleshy fibers will just, they'll just touch the surface of the bone. There's no anatomical connection as it is.
They make an impression. They make an impression. They do make an impression, yes. The
But
attachment,
they won't like the ligament.
they don't pull to that extent because usually the origin is fleshy and the insertion is tendinous or aponeurotic, right? So the movement occurs normally at the insertion, the distal attachment. Although it is variable, yes. So that's the usual way it is. So the point which is the part of the muscle which is relatively fixed, doesn't pull the periosteum to that extent. So the impression is relatively flattened, smoother compared to the area where the tendons and aponeurosis are attached.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Should I start?
Please do.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, the video itself first or the PPT? Yeah, I'll.
Just show them the video so that they have some idea what's happening.
Okay, ma'am.
How it looks when you reflect the skin and all that. Then go on to your.
Yes, ma'am. Alright. Oh, sorry. Okay. So, see, this is how you're going to be viewing the back region and the scapular region. When we necessarily talk about the scapular region as such, जब हम scapular region करते हैं, obviously it is a region which is behind your scapula, okay? But we are not talking about the muscles which are just on the scapula. When we dissect, we do the dissection with the dissection of the back and the scapular region. कोई भी muscle होगा वो scapula पे आके if something is attaching, it is coming from somewhere and attaching, or it is going from scapula to somewhere, isn't it? So scapular region doesn't only mean कि it is just only pertaining to just the scapula around. So when we have to deal with this part, see, this is how how the cadaver has been placed in the prone position with the head down, and this is the skin of the back. You make midline incisions. The midline incisions will extend from the spine of necessarily the second cervical vertebra. I said that the spine of the seventh cervical vertebra is the one which is more prominent. right? 7 cervical vertebra, the spine of the 7 cervical vertebra is actually your vertebra prominence, है ना? And we took with the spine forwards, हम उधर से नहीं कर रहे हैं, we are starting to be doing the dissection from the, see there is a complete midline incision which has been given on the dorsal aspect of this cadaver, dorsal aspect extending till the level of the 12th ribs here. There is he will be giving a horizontal incision. See, he is demonstrating that how the midline incision, complete midline incision has been given, okay? And from this midline incision there is another, from the spine of the 7 cervical vertebra, he will be giving another incision till the acromion process, the midline incision, and from the spine of the 12th till your क्या कहते हैं, where the middle of the humerus, we have the oblique incision here. So he has reflected the skin and has gone over to the superficial fascia in this region, which is thicker. Appreciate that this is a layer of the superficial fascia. I'm sorry, I'll just be playing the other video where we have the cutaneous nerves. We'll be going slow in that video. Yeah. So see this part. Just a passing by statement that again that we have the skin, the midline incision from this tip of the 7 cervical vertebra, the vertebral prominence of horizontal incision will be given till the acromion process. Okay, so this horizontal incision till acromion, and from the T12 over here, which is approximately the midpoint of the humerus here. Okay, now he is reflecting the skin flap. The skin flap has to be taken off very, very, very carefully. You know why? Because we have various cutaneous nerves here. It has been repeated again and again in two classes now. The spinal nerve, है ना? Spinal nerve में आपने देखा था, whenever a nerve is coming out from the vertebral level, from the spinal cord, it is coming out from the roots, the ventral root and the dorsal root. Okay, मैं सिर्फ theoretically बोल रही हूँ. I'll show you the image again, but mind it, the typical spinal nerve is very important. It will be repeated again and again and again with you. Okay, so the dorsal nerve is the one which has to go posteriorly. It has to supply the muscles and the skin on the back. When we are dissecting when we are doing the dissection of the back in the scapular region, we'll make very clear that we have to preserve the cutaneous nerve. This region is very rich in the cutaneous nerves and vessels. Okay, you'll have the cutaneous nerves coming out from the paravertebral region at all the levels here. See, he's just trying to say that we have to be very careful because we have the cutaneous nerves here coming out. You have to do the dissection very meticulously, because most of the times it is reflected to skin. You are not able to see that. Can you appreciate this cutaneous nerve here? Cutaneous nerve which is coming, this is
Yes, ma'am.
dorsal branch. It has to apply cutaneous hai, it has to go towards the skin of the dorsum, skin of the back. Okay, he's just demonstrating that these were the cut ends where probably, because this was very thick, hard hota hai skin, back regions, it's a very thick skin, especially in the cadavers. You would not be getting all the cadavers with very decent fascia to dissect. With a plain this thing, very meticulously he has now reflected the skin of the back. So what next we have? Once we go, these are all the muscles of the back. Now the muscles of the back, they are arranged in layers. We'll have the superficial layer of muscles and the deeper layer of the muscles. Yeah, I'll pause here. Can you appreciate this muscle, this big broad muscle here? This is the trapezius muscle.
Trapezius?
Yes. See, this is the spine of the scapula. अगर इसको यहीं से देखें, ठीक है? This is where your scapula is. Cadaver में इतना clear नहीं है, but I'll show you the landmarks. This is you can actually try to take your hand back on your back. What you feel is your spine of the scapula. Okay, the spine of the scapula, इसके नीचे it will have, this would be the extent of your scapula roughly. ठीक है, not very clear in this this thing. The spine of the scapula, this is your trapezius muscle. Appreciate the trapezius muscle is actually a rhomboid shape. It is shaped like a trapezium. This is the trapezius muscle. It is also taking origin from the neck region, from the posterior aspect of the neck. ऐसे I'm sorry. Can you see the trapezius muscle? It's like this, and on the other side, if I make it like this, it is forming a complete trapezium. Can you appreciate this? The superior fibers are coming here like this, like this. This is how now he will be dissecting the part of the trapezius. This is the complete extent of the trapezius. He is showing that this is going to be the other side also, the left side. This is the trapezius of the right side. We have not dissected the back of the neck region. Okay. He has given a paramedial incision here. He has now given a paramedial incision from the trapezius muscle. This was a median plane, the medial incision, paramedial. Now he will be reflecting the fibers. He has also reflected the attachment of the trapezius muscles from above. Okay, and he is reflecting the fibers of the trapezius. So what is below dorsum pe? What all muscles did you see? What were all the muscles that you had appreciated on the dorsum? Dorsal surface of the spine. Yeah, and the trapezius muscle is going there. Yeah, you had the rhomboid. I told you from the medial border. वो तो हम right में lateral side जाएंगे ना. The teres were on the right lateral side, but the rhomboid major, minor, and the levator scapulae. These are the muscles which are deep. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So if you appreciate that this is a trapezius muscle which is reflected. The trapezius muscle, this is the undersurface of the trapezius muscle, which is now being supplied by your nerves and vessels. This is the region of your supra scapular foramen, from where we have the suprascapular nerves and vessels. The undersurface of the trapezius has your it has your the spinal accessory nerve, which is a nerve supply of the trapezius muscle. It is by the spinal accessory nerve. All right, we have to make sure that we try to preserve these structures. Okay. This is the spinal accessory nerve which he is trying to show, supplying the trapezius muscle. And if you see the vessels, this is the transverse cervical, the transverse cervical vessels which are there. These are supplying the undersurface, the spinal accessory nerves and the transverse cervical vessels. This is the another end of the spine of the scapula. Okay, again I'll come back here. मेरे को एक यहाँ पे दिखाना था. Apart from just the vessels between here, can you appreciate these stretch of muscles which are coming? This is the medial border of the scapula. आगे वीडियो में चलेंगे और दोबारा बताएंगे. But this is the extent of the medial border. Now it is overhidden by the trapezius fibers. We have these muscle bundles which are here. These are the rhomboids. This is a rhomboid major muscle. This is the rhomboideus minor muscle, this strip of muscle, and this over here is the levator scapulae muscle. ठीक है? Yeah, so he'll show from the other side, the camera at the other angle. Can you see this? The trapezius has been reflected. This was the this was a median incision. This was a paramedian incision from where the trapezius has been reflected. The two parts, it has been reflected here. This is your scapula. This is the medial border of the scapula. Over here, can you see this fascia? This is the infraspinatus fascia, which is covering the infraspinatus muscle. This is the infraspinatus fascia, infraspinatus muscle over here. This is a, these are your muscles. He'll show here. Yeah. See, he's on a zoom plate. This is the medial border. अब पता लग रहा है? I hope you'll be able to appreciate now. This is the medial border. This is the angle. ऐसे देखो. Medial border.
Zoom
this
out.
would be the angle.
Zoom out, then we'll be able to see. Just zoom out.
How to zoom out?
I think you've zoomed in. Right?
No, ma'am. ये ऐसे ही है. That video is already zoomed in. I don't know. I don't have.
Okay, okay, fine. Just play it. Just
Yes,
play
ma'am.
it. तो उसमें फिर थोड़ा पर्सपेक्टिव आ जाएगा.
Yeah. No, सिर्फ medial border दिखा देती हूँ मैम.
Go back, go back. थोड़ा सा go back.
See, is reflecting the two heads, है ना? Sorry, the two cut parts of the trapezius, the vessels and the nerves under surface. Okay. Yeah, please appreciate
Dorsal
here.
scapular nerve and vessel.
Dorsal scapular nerve.
To uncover that,
Yes, ma'am.
to uncover that, he's cutting the muscles which are attaching to the medial border of the scapula. Right.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate this is a medial border. This is a rhomboid muscle. This is a rhomboideus minor. This is a rhomboideus major. This
minor opposite
above
the spine, the
and-
root of the spine of the scapula, and levator scapulae on the medial border above the root of the spine of the scapula.
Yeah.
So
This
three
over
muscles: levator
here
scapulae, then the rhomboideus minor, and then the rhomboideus major.
major and under
In
surface.
that order, from superior to inferior. So the right side of the screen is the superior end, the cephalic end or the cranial end of the body, and the left part of the screen is the towards the caudal end of the body. So when he reflected that, okay, continue.
Levator scapulae. He was showing the attachment on the medial border, and this is yeah. When he was reflecting those muscles, he was showing the vessels here. He was showing the vessels here, the structures which are the vessels and nerves which are below the rhomboideus major muscle. This was your levator scapulae. This is minor, rhomboideus minor and major. Can you see these vessels which are on the undersurface of the rhomboids? This is basically, we have a dorsal scapular nerve and the deep branch of the transverse cervical artery. I had the transverse cervical, the cervical artery which was deep to the trapezius. It goes further, gives a deeper branch which goes to the deep undersurface of the rhomboid. He's again positioned it back. This is revamping the trapezii, the cut ends. Now he has reflected the deeper, he has the reflected your rhomboids, given another incision over the rhomboids. Can you appreciate the rhomboids major and minor has been reflected, and he is showing you another set of nerves and vessels below. Okay, so this is your dorsal scapular nerve. I'm sorry for that thing above, but dorsal scapular nerve and vessels here. Okay, on the undersurface of your rhomboids. Now from here, he'll try to show you the area of the supraspinous fossa. Can you appreciate if this was the region of the infraspinous, इधर spine है, now he'll show you the region of the supraspinous fossa. Okay, on the supraspinous fossa, we have the superior border, and the superior border there is a foramen, the suprascapular foramen. The suprascapular foramen position black. I want you all here to appreciate the direction of fibers of the trapezius. This incision was made at the trapezius, right? If you just appreciate the direction of fibers of the trapezius muscle here, the fibers which are coming from below, अगर हम वापस जाके देखें बेटा, अगर हम वापस जाके डायरेक्शन देखेंगे फाइबर्स का, there are some fibers of the trapezius which is coming from above, and there are some fiber of the trapezius. See, these fibers of the trapezius, they are coming from below, from the spine and the supraspinous ligaments of the lower vertebra, and in the middle you will have the fibers, they are directed transversely. These are the middle fibers, and the fibers which are coming from above, they are the one which are directed again diagonally downwards. Okay, so where he was showing you, this was the direction of the fibers. Just appreciate the this is the trapezius muscle, just appreciate the direction of these fibers of trapezius, they're more horizontal. Okay. That incision has been made the skin, and it has been reflected. Trying to separate that region. Okay. What he showed here, this nerve is the spinal accessory nerve which is supplying your trapezius muscle. It is the 11th cranial nerve, is a spinal accessory nerve. Now can you see this region here? This is the area of the supraspinous fossa, deeper from the superior aspect you are watching. The supraspinous fossa, the supraspinatus muscle. Now he is going to go toward Can you appreciate the muscle here? And there is this muscle, this slender belly, which I had to show with the muscles now. This is the omohyoid muscle. Okay, see, now one thing that he has reflected the scapula in the complete extent. Just follow this. This is the medial border, this is the inferior border of the inferior angle of the scapula. This complete muscle is the latissimus dorsi muscle. Okay, the latissimus dorsi muscle, it takes origin from the thoracic spine of the lower six thoracic spines of the lower six thoracic vertebra. It also would come from the spine and the supraspinous ligaments of all the lumbar and the sacral vertebrae as well. ठीक है, this is a big muscle here, this latissimus dorsi muscle. It takes a one fleshy attachment from the slender slip from the inferior angle. So he has reflected that these are the fibers of the latissimus dorsi which spiral around. Just please appreciate here because I'm going to be talking about it in the PPT. Now see here, this is the dorsal surface of the scapula. This was a medial border, the rhomboids major and minor. This is the trapezius. The superficial muscle will include, so appreciate that the superficial muscles of the back are going to include your the trapezius muscle and the latissimus dorsi. You reflected the trapezius, you had the rhomboid muscles here from the medial border. This is the dorsal surface. This is the infraspinatus fascia which is covering the infraspinatus muscle, the inferior angle, and appreciate this area which would be this muscle. Dorsal surface में मैंने near the inferior angle क्या बताया था? Teres muscles. So dorsally I have two groups of muscles. Dorsally from the medial side I have the rhomboids and the levator, rhomboid major, minor and the levator scapulae, and on the dorsal aspect, from the dorsal aspect towards the lateral border I have the teres major and the minor muscle. On the ventral aspect of the medial border, the muscle was the serratus anterior muscle. The subscapularis is in the subscapular fossa. See, the lower part near the inferior angle, this muscle over here is the teres major muscle, and this muscle over here is the teres minor muscle. What do you think this is here? What do you think this is? Excellent. Circumflex scapular. This is your teres minor. Got it? ये देखो. Now what is he trying to do? What has he done? He has placed his hand in between the costal surface and a muscle. That is the serratus anterior muscle. है ना? Serratus anterior muscle तो rib cage से आ रहा है. Whatever the palm of his hand is facing the costal surface of the scapula. So the palm of his hand will be towards which muscle? Costal surface of scapula आएगा ना इसके palm के पास. Can you see the hand of the resident beneath the scapula? है ना? So when the hand is going inside, the palm of the hand is touching the costal surface. मतलब which muscle is it approximating? The subscapularis muscle. है ना? So it is a subscapularis muscle which is towards the palmar side, and dorsum की तरफ ventral से कौन सा muscle था? The serratus anterior muscle. So there is a loose, this thing, the facial thing, it actually can be easily glided in. The medial border of the scapula can easily be lifted up from the thoracic wall, and the underlying serratus the serratus anterior and the rhomboid, the medial border, can be lifted up. All right, there is a loose connective tissue thing in between them. Okay. Yeah.
That's because the scapula is held in position against the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage entirely by muscles. There is no bony articulation between the scapula and the rib cage. So the scapula articulates at the glenoid cavity with the humerus and the shoulder joint, right? And it articulates with the clavicle at the acromioclavicular joint. So where he is putting his hand is the serratus anterior.
Yeah.
Subscapularis they will be able to appreciate from the region of the armpit.
Yes, ma'am.
And the hand will go. When they put their hand in the axilla, then the hand will be between the serratus anterior and the subscapularis on the costal aspect of the scapula. So right now the hand is going and touching the serratus anterior, right? Because the serratus anterior is arising from the lateral thoracic cage and inserting onto the costal aspect of the medial border of scapula. Okay, now the video is done. Go back to your PPT.
Yes, ma'am.
Then it will make more sense. And in the end, maybe they can see the video again and they'll be able to appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Just appreciate one thing which I said, that it forms an incomplete ring, है ना? Incomplete ring because जैसे मैम ने बोला, there is no attachment, no posterior attachment, only articulating with your.
That makes the sternoclavicular joint that much more significant because it's the only bony articulation between an upper limb bone and the axial skeleton. The humerus is articulating with the scapula. The scapula articulates with the clavicle, and the clavicle is the only bone, upper limb bone, which is directly articulating at the sternoclavicular joint with the axial skeleton, the sternum.
Okay.
The scapula is held in position entirely by muscles against the thoracic cage.
So you just saw a bit of the dissection, so I hope you'll be able to tell me that what do we see when we see the back region. There are certain surface landmarks. सबसे पहले surface landmark that we appreciated was, can you tell me what would be this point?
Of the C7
Yeah, C7, the vertebra prominence, the C7. This is a posterior midline. There's a furrow, midline furrow here, and this broad area, the dilated, because see his arms are this thing. This is the complete extent of your trapezius muscle from here, because the trapezius muscle is taking attachment from the superior neck region, is also known as nuchal. Okay, so this complete area, this is, can you appreciate this line यहाँ पे, ये ऐसे आपको जो दिख रहा है, this would be the superior nuchal line. It is extending till the superior nuchal line. So the trapezius muscle is shaped like a trapezium. The two sides will form like a complete. This is the elevation of the trapezius muscle. This over here, when you dealt about the pectoral region, ma'am had clearly explained you about the anterior axillary fold, and you abduct your arms, you will have the anterior axillary fold and the posterior axillary fold. What do you think this is? This is the posterior axillary fold here. Okay, I said this is a trapezius muscle impression here. This is your latissimus dorsi. The posterior axillary fold is formed by the the teres major muscle and the latissimus dorsi muscle. This over here is your medial border of the scapula. Okay? This is the medial border of the scapula. This is the infraspinatus muscle. Okay? The acromion process. Okay? Just a revamp. Obviously this would be the deltoid, the contour of the shoulder, the rounded contour, and we have the rhomboid muscles from the medial border going up. Okay, rest of the things we'll talk later. Spinal nerve, do I need to go into detail? Just a revamp about it, the dorsal root and the ventral root. इसमें मैं क्यों बता रही हूँ? We have to focus over the region of the back. You will be reading about the spinal nerve again. But the typical spinal nerve dividing into the dorsal ramus and the ventral ramus, the dorsal ramus goes posteriorly, divides into a lateral muscular branch which ends by supplying your erector spinae muscle of the back. It's a deep muscle of the back region, and then this is a medial cutaneous branch. So what you saw in the dissection video that was shown was the medial cutaneous branch. Okay? This is the one which is entirely sensory, which goes in a paramedial position, reaches up till the skin and supplies the skin over the dorsum. It further divides into a medial cutaneous branch and the lateral cutaneous branch. So what was a bigger medial cutaneous branch छोटा होता है, the lateral cutaneous branch was the one which was coming out. It was a little broader. ठीक है? So this area is, as I said, is rich in the cutaneous nerves and the vessels over here. This is your image from your Cunninghams. जितना अच्छे से Cunningham पढ़ोगे, the more the things you're gonna get clear about. Okay, even the scapular movements you'll appreciate more when you will be reading your Cunninghams. So basically the cutaneous nerves of the back are basically the dorsal rami of the spinal nerves, as we said. ठीक है, and इसके बारे में, and then you have the arteries also, which when you saw the dissection video, see what he has done is, this is the trapezius muscle from the superior nuchal line over here, ठीक है, and this is the cut end of the trapezius muscle जो वीडियो में भी दिखाया था आपको. This is another, this image is from another book, more colorful, but this is from your dissector. You have certain nerves and vessels which are deep to the trapezius muscle. Basically the trapezius muscle is supplied by the spinal accessory nerve. The accessory nerve or the 11th cranial nerve has two parts. This is the spinal part of the accessory nerve which is supplying your trapezius muscle, and also the superficial branch of the transverse cervical artery. ठीक है, ये हमने जब trapezius reflect किया था तो इसको देखा था. Okay. When I come over to the muscles in this relation, इसका बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं जाना, you don't have to go into so much, but just have to tell you that all the muscles, when we have this, when we talk about the muscles of the shoulder girdle or also the muscles of the shoulder joint, they are arranged, all these muscles, they are arranged in layered functional groups. ठीक है, because your upper limb is a free limb. It is पीछे से जैसे sorry, the scapula is not attached posteriorly, so one limb is independent of the other limb. It is independent, and you have so many movements over here. All the muscles in the shoulder joint and the shoulder region arranged as functional groups. ठीक है, the muscles which are ascribed to your shoulder girdles may either suspend as in hold the scapula. You understand the meaning of suspend? आपने पकड़ा हुआ है किसी चीज़ को, suspended. This is suspended from there. Okay, something which is holding on to, or they might move the scapula. And all these functions, they are independent, interdependent on each other. Similarly, when I talk about the muscles of the shoulder joint, these muscles, what will they do? They will move the shoulder joint, isn't it? They will move the arm, they will stabilize the shoulder joint. And क्या करेंगे, शोल्डर से लेके मसल्स हैं कोऑर्डिनेट करके, some muscles might go to the elbow joint also. So all these muscles need to be coordinated. So in this region, what I am going to be talking about is only the muscles which are pertaining to your scapula. ठीक है, scapula में सबसे पहले एक तो the broadest muscle that we saw just now was the trapezius. Trapezius को functional group में क्या आया मेरा? If you saw, when you saw the video, the whole scapula was moving. The scapula was suspended. So trapezius is a muscle which is the muscle of scapular suspension. It is being suspended. Okay, so the scapula is being suspended by this muscle. It is your क्या कहते हैं, it's a triangle, trapezium. One muscle of one side is triangular in shape, दोनों side का मिलके they form trapezium, so वो trapezius muscle बना, है ना. But कहाँ से origin हो रहा था? From the occipital bone of the skull. So occipito-spino-scapular. All the fibers were coming from the occiput, from the spine of the vertebrae. So this was functional group, that is your suspension. Okay. Similarly, you have the muscles from thorax as in rib के लिए thoracoscapular. The muscles which are attached to your thoracic vertebra to the scapula, thoracoscapular vertebra, and from they are muscles which are attached from the scapular on the scapula, and the other attachment is on the humerus, the scapulohumeral muscles. So The muscles which are of the scapular suspension, they are the trapezius, pectoralis minor and the clavius muscles, which are the muscles of the, these two muscles are the muscles of the pectoral girdle. I'm not talking about them. You don't have to go into the details of these muscles, posterior, inferior and posterior, but for the muscles of the scapular motion, only the how the scapula is being moved, they are by the levator scapulae, rhomboideus minor, major and the serratus anterior. These muscles are attached on the medial border, on the ventral and the dorsal aspect of the medial border. ठीक है? From the arm, from the ribs to the, from the scapula to the arm, from the thoracobrachial motion, the deltoid and the latissimus dorsi, these are other muscles. And ये क्या होता है concavity compression? अगर आप कुछ चीज़ में ऐसे देखो, आप supraspinatus, infraspinatus, all these muscles, they'll be converging and they're going to go to the they form the rounded contour of your shoulder joint and all that. So all these muscles, these are your supra, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, teres minor, major and subscapularis. All these muscles, they attach on one side to the scapula and they are attached further on to the humerus. So as we saw the dissection images, the most superficial muscle that we have here is the trapezius muscle. The muscle below that is the latissimus dorsi muscle. The muscle forming the contour of the shoulder joint is the deltoid muscle. The infraspinatus muscle was deeper, right? So this is the infraspinatus fascia which is covering the infraspinatus muscle. And see, a very slender, the posterior axillary fold किसने बनाया था? Your teres major muscle. The posterior axillary fold here is being formed by the latissimus dorsi and the teres major muscle here. Okay, what do you think this is? This is your spine of the scapula. Trapezial fibers attaching onto the medial border of the acromion and the upper lip of the spine of the scapula, and the deltoid fibers are attaching on the lower lip of the spine, the lateral border of the acromion. Remember that part? So this is how the deltoid and the trapezius, they are attached. Okay. Now I'll be asking you something. Now we have cut apart the trapezius and the latissimus dorsi muscles. They have been reflected. अब ये बता दिया है आपको. What do you think these muscles are?
Rhomboid.
Yes, very good. This is the medial border of the scapula. This is the spine of the scapula. From the near the inferior angle, this is a rhomboideus. Which muscle is below? This is the
Rhomboideus
major. From the root of the spine, we have the rhomboideus minor, and this muscle,
Levator scapula.
yeah, this is a strap muscle. Yeah, this is a strap muscle here. This is the levator scapulae. What do you think this muscle is? ये कौन सा surface है scapula का? Yes, very good. Infraspinatus. This is.
Supraspinatus.
What do you think this is? ये क्या है?
Clavicle.
Clavicle. And this?
The deltoid muscle.
No. The spine of the scapula. This is the lower border of the spine and this is the upper border of the spine of the scapula. Trapezius काट दिया हमने, है ना? This over here is a coracoacromial joint. Sorry, acromioclavicular joint, है ना? Sorry for my slip of tongue. This is the acromioclavicular joint here. Now appreciate the fact that the supraspinatus and the infraspinatus muscle, they are going beneath this area. When I was demonstrating the bone to you, I said the undersurface of the acromion process. यहाँ पे क्या होगा लगभग? Your glenoid cavity, because your humerus is there, right? These are the arm muscles, isn't it? ठीक है? Roughly here would be the glenoid cavity. So all the structures the supraspinatus, infraspinatus are going under the cover of this muscle, which is the deltoid muscle. Deltoid muscle is forming the rounded contour of the shoulder. ठीक है? अब now tell me, this was the infraspinatus, which is the muscle which is, we have cut apart the levator scapula, the latissimus dorsi, which takes a slip of attachment from the inferior angle of the scapula. Which muscle is this?
Teres major.
Major. And this muscle? Minor.
Very minor.
This is shown in this image, but in most of the times you're not able to see the teres minor as such. Okay? Because it is covered by the superficial muscles. Okay. Another important thing, another not important, can you appreciate which muscle is at the back of your arm? कौन सा muscle होता है? Extensor. Awesome. The triceps. In the front or the flexor surface we have the biceps. So this muscle is the triceps. And when I was talking about the attachments, I said there are two tubercles near the glenoid. Glenoid, there's a supraglenoid tubercle above the glenoid cavity. There's an infraglenoid tubercle below the glenoid cavity. है ना? That infraglenoid tubercle was a triangular. याद है? When we were talking about the bone, this is the long head. This is the long head of the triceps muscle, which is coming from the infraglenoid tubercle. Okay. I'll be taking up the muscle separately also, so don't worry. So this is what you have seen. These are different cadaver images. Again, the incisions which were given, the skin flap is, these were the 3 incisions given, the skin flap is raised, the superficial fascia. We have another video of this cadaver also. This is more neat, so it will orient you more, but we didn't have the cutaneous nerves here. So, okay, so this is how even the superficial, after we reflect the superficial flap, appreciate this is the trapezius muscle. This is your latissimus dorsi. This is the lateral border. ये medial border आया. Lateral border से we'll be having your teres major muscles here. I have a space here. एक triangle बन रहा है यहाँ पे. Can you appreciate this? Borders के बीच में. This is with the lateral border of your trapezius, the medial border of your scapula, and the superior border of the latissimus dorsi. Able to appreciate this, beta?
Yes.
This is a small triangle. This is a triangle of, yeah. Can you appreciate this very clearly? It is seen here. There is a triangle which is being formed. ये triangle ऐसे कैसे नहीं बन रहा? Because these muscles are just overlapping. It is between the margins of these muscles, and this structure is at a deeper plane. ठीक है? This is a lateral border of your trapezius. ये trapezius के lower fibers हैं, which are going up to attach to the scapula, right? Appreciating, these will be from the spines and the supraspinous ligaments of the vertebrae, the lower fibers of the trapezius. This is your medial border of the scapula, this is the lateral border of the scapula, and this is the latissimus dorsi muscle, which has not been dissected from below. This is the superior border of the latissimus dorsi muscle, because the latissimus dorsi is originating from the lower 6 spine of the lower 6 thoracic vertebra and the lumbar and the sacral vertebra. So this is a superior border of the latissimus dorsi, the lateral border of the trapezius muscle, and the medial border of the scapula. This triangle is known as the triangle of auscultation. ठीक है? इसको क्यों बोलते हैं triangle of auscultation? Initially you have, the part of the stomach, it lies deep to it. So you can actually keep your stethoscope here. If you keep the stethoscope here, you can actually hear the splash of the swallowed liquids and all, which can be heard over here. That is why this is known as a triangle of auscultation. Yes, also one more thing, you can hear the sound from the apex of the lower lobe of the lungs, which is more important. When we lungs, wo thorax mein jaake padhoge hai, we have different lobes in the lungs as well. The apex of the lower lobes of the lungs, you can feel auscultate in this region. That is why this area is known as the triangle of auscultation. So
yes, because it is thinly covered by muscles, and therefore it is easier to hear the breath sounds of the lower lobe of the lung in this region. So that's the reason why it's called the triangle of auscultation, because everywhere else the posterolateral thoracic cage is thickly covered by muscles, but here it is thinly covered by muscles, right? So it's easier to hear the breath sounds. That's why it's called the triangle of auscultation, lower lobe of the lung. Yes.
याद करना how a pediatrician used to auscultate. जब बीमार होते थे how you would have gone to a pediatrician, वो पीछे कहाँ पे, because lower lobe है ना, that is the most dependent space also, even plural all the sounds are more in, ठीक है. Anyways, not going into that. So on a zoomed in thing, further dissection, we appreciate this is the latissimus dorsi. This was the medial border, the lateral border. This is the dorsal surface of the scapula. ये क्या है? This is your infraspinatus fossa, which is covering your infraspinatus muscle. Lateral border से which muscle is this, beta? The teres major. Teres major. Above fibers are going to be the fibers of the teres minor muscle. The teres major with the latissimus dorsi, they form the posterior axillary fold. Okay. Now see, this is the trapezius has been cut open. These are the fibers of the deltoid. This is the deltoid muscle which is forming the rounded contour of the shoulder, formed by the deltoid muscle. Okay. See, further dissection. This is your deltoid muscle. The trapezius muscle here, the infraspinatus fascia covering it here. Okay, मैंने question किया but you already know, I'm not going to take time more. The teres major and the minor muscle. I thought I'll ask you, but time नहीं है अभी पूछने का. So, see, very clearly highlighted in this image, the triangle of auscultation. Hope you guys are clear. Trapezius, medial border of scapula, and the latissimus dorsi. So coming over to the trapezius muscle. Trapezius muscle is a flat muscle. It's a triangular muscle. It takes see, this is your occipital bone of the skull. ज़्यादा नहीं पढ़ेंगे, but this is the occipital bone of the skull, the external occipital protuberance, and this is a superior nuchal line. And the trapezius, the upper fibers of the trapezius, they take origin from the medial 1/3 of the superior nuchal line. These are the upper fibers when they descend down, and they take origin from the spinous processes and the supraspinous ligaments of the thoracic 1st to the 12th vertebra. All right. So all these vertebra, the middle fibers are more horizontally placed. In the video, the resident had been trying to show you, जो incision हमने दिया था, from this would be the level of the vertebra prominence. When we gave a horizontal incision from the level of vertebra prominence till the acromion, the fibers were horizontally disposed. Upper fibers descend down, and these lower fibers are going to go up. So how are these? How are they attaching? How are they attaching is more important. They are attached, these fibers, the upper fibers, you can appreciate the extent of fibers here in this one. Now appreciate how it is, see how beautifully the trapezius is attached. See, it's covering the whole part from the posterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the posterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. ये कौन से fibers आए? The upper fibers are coming and attaching on the posterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. This is the acromioclavicular joint here. The upper lip of the spine of the scapula is attaching to the upper lip, and the upper lip of the crest of the spine of the scapula. Just a sec. And these lower fibers, they are going to be attaching at this prominence here. Oh my god, I'm sorry how I missed this prominence on the lower limb. Can you just turn on the screen, beta? Can you just see this part? Can you appreciate how the lower fibers are gonna be? This was the lower lip of the crest of the spine of scapula. You're going in a flow and you tend to miss some things. This rounded thing, this is actually your deltoid tubercle. ये thick सा है ना यहाँ पे prominence. This was the upper lip of crest of spine. This is the lower lip of crest of spine. This thickened thing here, this is the deltoid tubercle. this is where the lower fibers, swipe onto the screen also the PPT as well. The lower fibers of the trapezius, they are attaching here at this point, the deltoid tubercle. Mind it, it is called the deltoid tubercle, but the deltoid fibers are not attaching on it. Where are the deltoid fibers attaching? They are attached on the upper lip of the crest of spine of scapula. The lower lip of the crest of spine of scapula and the deltoid, they are giving attachment to the trapezius. Okay. When I talk about the deltoid, there's going to be another thing which you'll read. But on the scapula, there is a deltoid tubercle which is giving attachment to the lower fibers of the trapezius. Clear? So, appreciate this, how the fibers are attached over the trapezius. From the upper fibers on the lateral posterior border of the lateral 1/3, the spine, and also जो नीचे से आए fibers, the lower fibers attaching onto the deltoid tubercle here. So the trapezius muscle, when we saw the undersurface of the trapezius muscle, what was the nerve which was coming there? Was the spinal part of the spinal accessory nerve. It carries the nerve supply from the spinal accessory nerve, and there are also certain proprioceptive fibers from the ventral rami of C3 and C4 spinal nerves also. They also give some proprioceptive fibers to the some fibers to the trapezius muscle. Yeah, sure. Can you appreciate this, beta? This is the lower lip of the spine. This is the deltoid tubercle here. I'll show you the bone separately. ये देखो, can you see this? This is a deltoid tubercle. ये upper lip है crest of spine. This is a lower lip of crest of spine. This is the deltoid tubercle. Clear? Yeah. So it carries its nerve supply from there. Actions, I would want to, if I have to just simplify the actions, it's a little this thing, मैं बाद में बताती हूँ, मतलब I'll tell you all the actions in detail बाद में. So, and the another superficial muscle layer, this is your latissimus dorsi. The latissimus dorsi muscle, it taking origin from the spine of the lower 6th thoracic spine and the supraspinous ligaments of the lower 6th thoracic nerve, the lumbar spines, and also the spines of the sacral vertebra. And this is an aponeurotic sheet here. These are the fibers which go up. This is beautiful in a way that you know, the fibers of the latissimus dorsi, they spiral around. I want you to see my hand. No, they are aponeurotic sheets, beta. Ligament is thin band which is there. A flattened sheet, flattened attachment, tendon, flattened thing is the aponeurosis, not this. So can you see my hand? If I see that these are the fibers of the latissimus dorsi, when they're approaching when they पहले see the PPTs में, the fibers of the latissimus dorsi, they are going to attach onto the humerus. So this becomes the latissimus dorsi, a muscle of thoracohumeral muscle. ठीक है? Trapezius was a muscle of suspension. The scapula is suspended. Okay? Yes, aponeurosis. So trapezius is a muscle of suspension. अब latissimus dorsi कहाँ है? If you see in the PPT, the fibers are going to attach to the humerus, in front of the humerus, but the fibers are coming from back. How are the fibers coming from back? These are the flattened fibers. Can you see my hand? Please see my hands. I don't have any other mean to explain this. I see the fibers of latissimus dorsi, they spiral around like this. If you just try to spiral around your hand, ऐसे रखो, you try to spiral around, that's how the fibers of latissimus dorsi are going to spiral around and attach in front of the humerus in the bicep. I'll show you what is intertubercular sulcus and all, but just see that the fibers are spiraling around. And we also have the fibers of the, did you understand this, what I tried to explain? Please reply me, or please say something. Were you able to comprehend this, what I told? Yeah, they spiral around when they are going into the anterior part, and they also have attaching, see, come to the PPT, these fibers are taking the attachment, slip of attachment from the inferior angle Okay, in the first image in the PPT, can you see what is being done? The arm is abducted, as in when you're raising the arm above, the spiral arrangement of these fibers, it actually makes it easy for, it facilitates the abduction. No, just hold on for the thing here. Just hold on for that, wait on. Just appreciate here that the latissimus dorsi, we have the fibers of the teres major muscle, and both these form the posterior axillary fold. Okay. The latissimus dorsi muscle, there is a muscle from the brachial plexus. This is the thoracodorsal nerve. You'll read about the brachial plexus also. So the thoracodorsal nerve is the one which supplies your latissimus dorsi. Okay, plexus is the term you're hearing now, I guess. All the ventral rami of all the spinal nerves, they form a plexus. आप इसको बाद में पढ़ोगे, just don't go into the detail. Okay, thoracodorsal nerve. But इस चीज़ को याद रखना that the fibers are coming from posterior, the latissimus dorsi are coming to the anterior aspect, because I'll talk about this later. Okay. What is this? So what do you think the fibers of trapezius muscle have been reflected? This is a, sorry, yeah, the trapezius muscle. What do you think this is and this is and this is? Can you tell me what is 2, 3 and 4? I want the answer. What is 2, 3 and 4? Okay, these are the muscles, beta. Levator and the scapulae, rhomboid, minor, major. This is the latissimus dorsi muscle. What are the attachments do you want me to tell, beta? या मैंने ना by chance ना, I'm so sorry, मैं इसको वो क्यों बोल रही थी? And this is just, ma'am, I'm sorry, by mistake I said this is a thoracolumbar fascia. I'm so sorry for that. The thoracolumbar fascia and your spines of all these spinous processes, we have the latissimus dorsi. I'll show you the attachment of the latissimus dorsi on the humerus also. Okay. In the subsequent slide, it will come. What do you think these are the nerves and the vessels here? The spinal accessory nerve and the superficial branch of the spinal transverse cervical artery. So the levator scapulae muscles and the rhomboids major minor, you are clear about it. The levator scapulae muscle is taking origin from the anterior tubercle on the transverse process of the first 4 cervical vertebrae. See, this is a strap muscle which is coming from this attachment. It is taking attachment on from the anterior tubercle on the the transverse process of the, these are the spinous process, these are the body of the vertebrae, these are the transverse process of the vertebra. From the anterior aspect we have the levator scapulae, these are the 4 strips of attachment and attached onto the medial border of the scapula on the dorsal aspect above the root of the spine of the scapula. The rhomboideus minor muscle, this minor muscle is attaching onto the spinous process and the supraspinous ligaments of the C7 and the thoracic 1 vertebra. ये दोबारा I mean I'll repeat, at the base of the root of the spine, and the other attachment of the rhomboideus major muscle is from the spinous processes of your T2 to the T5 vertebra. Yes, latissimus dorsi is a single muscle. It's one muscle on both the sides. ठीक है? So there are structures which are deep to the rhomboid muscles. In the video also it was shown that we have the dorsal scapular nerve. This is also a branch from the brachial plexus, and the deep branch of the transverse cervical artery. What about trapezius as in? Trapezius to reflect हो गया. Trapezius has been reflected. The rhomboids are deeper. Yeah, trapezius is a single muscle. It has different origins. It has a broad attachment from all these places and attaching it.
I think what Dr. Vidhu, what they mean is It's a bilateral muscle. On either side, it's one muscle.
Either side
So there
is
are
one
two
muscle.
trapezius in the back and two latissimus dorsi in the back. But on one side, it's a single muscle. Yes. That's what they mean. Because see, they are beginners. They are seeing these things for the first time. They have to ask these questions. You can't assume anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So these are bilateral. These are two muscles, one on either side of the midline. Trapezius, one on either side. Latissimus dorsi, one on either side.
So, coming on to this muscle, which is this muscle, the deltoid. हमने पढ़ा that the deltoid muscle is forming the contour of your shoulder joint. This is a deltoid when you are seeing the fibers from the anterior side, from the lateral side and from the posterior side. है ना? The deltoid when you see from the anterior, when we seen at the anterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, it is attached here. है ना? The fibers are from the anterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. And from there further the fibers will be attached on to the, this is the anterior border of the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, from here also on the tip of the acromion process, because the acromioclavicular joint is here, है ना? Trapezius को भूल जाना अभी यहाँ पे. This is a acromioclavicular joint, and from here we have the, this is a tip of acromion till the acromial angle. This is the lateral border of the acromial, and from there we have the, ये देखो, this would be the tip of the acromion, ये acromioclavicular joint. This is a lateral, anterior border of lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, the tip, the tip and the lateral acromial, lateral border and the acromial angle, and from here to the lower lip of the crest of the spine of the scapula, it is attaching there, है ना? Sorry, yeah, the fibers of the deltoid, they are actually disposed in they are actually disposed as if you see the fibers which are coming from the anterior, and they are disposed as an anterior bundle and the posterior bundle. These are the parallel fibers. These are anterior bundle, this will be the anterior bundle, and these are the, this is the posterior fibers of the deltoid muscle. They are arranged separately. We have various intermuscular septa, and if you see these fibers in between from the lateral part of the acromion, these are the multipinnate fibers of the deltoid. ठीक है? The basically it is from the lateral border of the scapula only, lateral border of the acromion, that there are actually let me see if I can show you. There are basically 4 tubercles on the lateral border of the acromion. Yeah, can you please turn on the screen, beta? Okay, share, see the, so again coming here, this is the lateral border of the acromion. Can you appreciate there are certain tubercles here? ऐसे, can you see the sort of elevation, the smaller elevation? These are the 3 or 4 tubercles on the lateral border of the tubercle of the acromion here. So basically from these tubercles there are it sends the intermuscular septa which goes down. Are you able to appreciate? Please see it clearly. This is a lateral border of the acromion. There are certain 3 or 4 tubercles over here. यहाँ पे पता नहीं कितने हैं, पर 2-3 हैं यहाँ. ठीक है? From these the fibrous septa is sent down, is sent in the substance of the deltoid muscle. See the PPT again. So this would be the, Pankaj, you asked about, no, trapezius is not attached on the lower lip, it is attached on the upper lip, but it has attachment on the deltoid. See the PPT, I'll show you here. The trapezius fibers are attached, I'm answering the question in between. The trapezius fibers are attached on the upper lip and also on the deltoid tubercle, on the surface of the deltoid tubercle here. Okay, but this is a lower margin where the deltoid muscle is attached. But the pura surface is attached to, this is a lower lip where of the this part, and over here we have the trapezius fibers. appreciate that the deltoid, the lateral margin of the acromion, there were 3 or 4 deltoid tubercle from which the fibrous 3 fibrous septa they are sent downwards. Okay, and they subdivide the fibers into anteriorly placed fibers, the posteriorly placed fibers, the anteriorly placed, these are the posteriorly disposed fibers, and these anterior and the posterior plate, these are parallel bundles, these are so parallel fibers, these are parallel bundles of the muscles here, while the fibers on the lateral aspect attaching from the acromion, taking attachment from the acromion, these are multipinnate fibers. Okay, and all these fibers are gonna converge sorry. So what did I say, that the anterior and the posterior fibers are parallelly arranged, okay, and these fibers, and they are smaller also. These fibers from the lateral aspect, these are longer fibers, these are multipinnate fibers, okay, and all these fibers they converge into this tendon which is attached onto the deltoid tuberosity on the lateral aspect of the humerus. Okay, see the screen again. Mera camera dekho. If I'm holding this,
for answering this query, Dr. Vidhu, you have a very nice picture in the beginning of your PPT where you showed the whole pectoral girdle. On that pectoral girdle, they will get it. There is always a confusion between where the deltoid is attached, and where the trapezius is attached. Yeah, so on this picture you can show them. Whereas the trapezius is attached to the posterior border of the lateral 1/3 of clavicle, the medial border of the acromion process, it is attached to the upper lip of the crest of spine of scapula. The deltoid is the outer circle attached to the anterior border of the lateral 1/3 of clavicle, the lateral border of the acromion process, and the lower border or lower lip of the crest of spine of scapula. So the insertion of trapezius is fitting in to the origin of the deltoid. In the circle which is formed by the pectoral girdle, the clavicle and the scapula. Notably, the acromion and the spine of the scapula. That's right. So you have a pectoral girdle picture which you showed in that PPT.
Yes, ma'am, in the previous PPT, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Which gives a view from above.
Yes, ma'am.
There you can explain it.
And there was one more image I should have put, ma'am. एक और अच्छा image था, डाला नहीं मैंने.
Never mind.
And one more thing which I said in the initial part of the scapula, you remember when I was talking about the pectoral girdle, I said that the angle which the scapula makes with the clavicle is 60 degrees. See this. This is that particular thing, that the clavicle is subtended with the scapula at an angle of 60 degrees while the scapula makes an angle of 30 degrees with the coronal plane. ठीक है. Now coming back to deltoid. So deltoid का मेरा screen देखो बेटा. So this is a glenoid cavity articulating with your humerus. So I have all the fibers of the deltoid. I'm leaving the scapula. Are you able to see the scapula and the humerus both in my hands? So if I have the deltoid fibers, I'm leaving the scapula now. So deltoid fibers like this, the anterior bundle, the posterior bundle, and this would be the position of the lateral disposition. Take my little finger and my thumb as this is the anterior, this is the posterior bundle, and take as the lateral disposed multipinnate fibers. ठीक है? तो ये ऐसे करके आए, and these fibers are gonna come over, they're forming the contour of your shoulder joint, and these are attached, the fibers, this tendinous part is attached onto the lateral aspect. Medially humerus में will have the head of the humerus, and the lateral aspect there is a V-shaped tubercle. Just see this. This is the deltoid tubercle. The deltoid muscle is going to come like this. The two bundles and this, the deltoid muscle is going to come like this and attached onto the deltoid tubercle in an inverted V-shaped manner. Don't go by my hands. वो सीधा V बन रहा है, but it is like an inverted V how the fibers are attached. Sorry, not an inverted V. Sorry, they are attached in a V-shaped manner. Sorry for this, the V-shaped manner, because the central fibers, yes, this is the deltoid tubercle. Sorry, this is the deltoid tuberosity. This was the deltoid tubercle here, and on the humerus we have the deltoid tuberosity. I have the deltoid tubercle on the scapula, and on the humerus we have the deltoid tuberosity. Yes, the deltoid tuberosity on the humerus and the fibers of deltoid attached as a V. V, why V? Because the middle fibers or the lateral fibers, they are multipinnate fibers. They are longer fibers, and the anterior and posterior bundles of the deltoid fibers, they are parallel fibers. They are smaller fibers, and these, you see the PPT again, the anterior and the posterior parallel and smaller fibers, while these are multipinnate fibers, they are longer fibers, so it becomes like a V, right? It's going to be 1. So just brushing up, humerus देखा था, humerus में, just see the screen here, just see my screen here beta. This is the anterior aspect. There are 2 tuberosities here on the humerus. There is a lesser tuberosity and the greater this thing, and there is lesser tubercle and the greater tubercle. This is a greater tubercle, the bigger one. Anteriorly placed is the lesser tubercle. This is a greater tubercle, and in between there is a groove between the 2 tubercles. It is an intertubercular groove or sulcus. Okay? So your subscapularis muscle, which is coming here, the subscapularis is attaching on the lesser tubercle of the humerus. Okay? Deltoid was attaching on the deltoid tuberosity. The subscapularis muscle from the costal aspect of your scapula is attaching on to the lesser tubercle. Okay? See the PPT. The subscapularis is attaching on to the lesser tubercle of the humerus. The supraspinatus and the infraspinatus, not going into the detail, but एक image में मैंने पहले दिखाया था that the supraspinatus, infraspinatus and all these muscles, they are going beneath the coracoid process and the acromion. You are going to be reading about it in great detail when you do about the shoulder joint and the other joints. Just see, they are just beneath your coracoid and the acromion process, and these are the ones which are getting attached onto the greater tubercle. So the greater tubercle, this is a greater tubercle as seen from the lateral side. It gives attachment to 3 muscles. The supraspinatus on a bigger bigger facet here, the infraspinatus, and here what is attaching is the teres minor. So SIT, the supraspinatus, infraspinatus and the teres minor. Teres minor was coming from the dorsal aspect. The infraspinatus coming from the dorsal aspect. The supraspinatus from the superior aspect. They are attaching onto the greater tubercle. अब एक चीज़ याद करो. I told when I showed the latissimus dorsi, I also talked about that how the fibers of teres major are going. They are forming the posterior axillary fold, and they were also going and attaching in front of the humerus. So the infraspinatus and teres minor are attaching on the on the greater tubercle here, but the teres major, which is a posterior muscle, is also going to the front. ठीक है? See, ये दिखाया था ना मैंने आपको image. The teres major and these are the fibers of the latissimus dorsi. These are the fibers of your teres major, and the latissimus dorsi fibers and the teres major fibers, they are attached. Actually, I did not see this. This should have been a little this thing. You don't take this as a teres. Yeah. We'll leave this image apart. This is not a very correct. Hanji ma'am.
What is the problem? The latissimus dorsi takes origin from the back, right? And it winds around the lower border of the teres major and inserts on the lateral aspect of the insertion of teres major. So teres major inserts onto the medial lip of the bicipital groove whereas latissimus dorsi inserts into the floor of the bicipital groove or the intertubercular sulcus, right? So what it is winding around is, so in the right hand picture are the fibers of the latissimus dorsi which are,
Ma'am, they pura, I did not see, but this is not a correct disposition, ma'am. It should have been on the floor.
it should be inserting into the floor of the bicipital groove. So there's an error in the picture.
Yeah, error in the picture. I'm sorry for this. I'll rectify this part.
To be inserting into the floor.
Yes.
Not onto the medial lip.
एक चीज को अगर वैसे ही ध्यान से देखो, see we anteriorly you had the muscle pectoralis major, right? You read about in the pectoral region. From the back you have the muscle latissimus dorsi, which is coming from below, and also the teres major. The pectoralis major muscle is at, these are the two lips. This is the front side. Anteriorly we have the lesser tubercle, and this was the greater tubercle. On the greater tubercle you had the supraspinatus, and from the back we will have the other face of the infraspinatus and the teres minor. Three muscles are attaching here on the greater tubercle. Lesser tubercle pe anteriorly the subscapularis muscle. Can you figure this out? Over here we will have the subscapularis muscle getting attached here. So latissimus dorsi is coming here, it attaches here. There is an error here, I am sorry for that. The latissimus dorsi attaches in the floor of this groove. फ्लोर है, and there are two lips of this groove. कुछ भी grooved चीज़ है, it has two lips. This is a medial lip and this is the lateral lip. The medial lip, yes, inside the groove, in the floor of this groove we have the latissimus dorsi which is attaching here, and this is the teres major muscle which will attach onto the medial lip of the bicipital groove, and on the lateral lip you have the pectoralis major muscle. You will be doing this with the arm, but अगर कुछ confusion हो that whether the latissimus is attached on the medial lip or the pectoralis major, just see this, इतना बड़ा muscle नीचे से आ रहा है, अगर वो शुरू में ही if it gets attached to the medial lip, then how will the teres major get attached to the floor, right? So initially what? Inside the groove, on the floor. This is inside the groove. This is the floor of the groove, the latissimus dorsi muscle. Whenever you have a confusion, yes, obviously the medial lip will be closer to the midline. The medial lip of the, this is a lesser tube.
To resolve it all, this picture shows you the intertubercular sulcus quite well, right?
Yeah.
So the bicipital groove or the intertubercular sulcus, and you can see some of them are asking about the greater tubercle of the humerus. The greater tubercle of the humerus is visible on the lateral, it forms a prominence on the lateral aspect of the humerus. So if you have to palpate the greater tubercle, you have to do a deep palpation through the fibers of the deltoid which cover it, right? Go back to the previous slide. Yeah. So the pectoralis major, go back to the previous slide. Just go back to the previous slide. No, previous slide. Previous one. Previous one. Go back.
This one now.
No. Oh, you were showing that, yeah, this one, the erroneous picture.
Okay.
So you can see the greater tubercle, the medial aspect of the greater tubercle is defining the lateral lip above, lateral lip of the intertubercular sulcus or the bicipital groove, right? And the lesser tubercle is placed anteriorly on the upper end of humerus, and its lateral aspect is continuing down with the medial lip of the bicipital groove. Now attached to the lateral lip of the bicipital groove or the crest, the dissector calls it the crest of the greater tubercle, is attached the pectoralis major muscle of the pectoral region. And attached to the floor of the bicipital groove is the latissimus dorsi. Even though it's coming from the back, it winds around the lower border of the teres major and comes to attach lateral to the attachment of the teres major, which inserts on the medial lip or medial margin of the bicipital groove or the intertubercular sulcus. Okay, so there's a mnemonic. It's called lady between two majors. The lateral lip of the bicipital groove gives attachment to pectoralis major, and the medial lip gives is attachment to the teres major, and inserting in the floor is the latissimus dorsi, the lady between the two majors. So that's how these three muscles, two of which are coming actually from the back and the scapular region, and one of them which is coming from the front of the external aspect of the thoracic cage, from the front, that is pectoralis major, are coming to insert very close to each other on the anterior aspect of the humerus in the region of the intertubercular sulcus or the bicipital groove. So the only error in this diagram on the right side of the slide is where they have inserted the latissimus dorsi.
This should have gone here.
It should have been on the floor. Yeah.
I'm sorry for the image, ma'am.
That's all. Otherwise, it gives you some kind of a perspective. Proceed, please.
So there's a entity known as a musculotendinous or the rotator's cuff. So basically, all these muscles, the this is the shoulder region when we, this is the scapula and the clavicle would have been here. The supraspinatus muscle, this is what you view from above. Okay, this is a superior view. When we have, this is the subscapularis muscle which would attach to the subscapularis muscle attaching onto the lesser tubercle. This is the region of the greater tubercle, and it has a supraspinatus, would be the infraspinatus. This is actually the cut part of the deltoid, all making the contour. These four tendons, the subscapularis, this is the subscapularis muscle and the tendon, and then you have your supraspinatus muscle and the tendon, infraspinatus, and what was the last muscle? The teres minor. All these muscles, they're forming a the muscle and the tendon, they cuff around the shoulder joint. It's also known as the musculotendinous or the rotator's cuff. It gives a certain level of protection to the shoulder joint as such, and it gives a protection to the shoulder joint from above to dislocate. So, but inferiorly there is, you'll read about it in the shoulder joint in detail, and you'll read about it in detail there. But the shoulder joint is lax from below. The shoulder joint is protected superiorly from this cuff. What is a cuff? Cuff is your the subscapularis, which is anteriorly, the supraspinatus, and the infraspinatus and the teres, they all form a musculotendinous cuff around, and any kind of dislocation of the humerus does not happen toward the from the posterior side. All kind of dislocations, and this humerus it is easy for the shoulder joint to dislocate from the inferior side, because there is no protection to the joint from below. Okay. In this image you can also see the coracoid process. Remember I told about the conoid tubercle. This is a conoid tubercle, the part between the horizontal and the vertical, junction between the horizontal and the vertical part of the coracoid process. There is a tubercle which is on the dorsal side. This is a conoid tubercle. This is the the coracoacromial ligament, the conoid part and the trapezoid part of the coracoacromial ligament. All this thing is forming the under surface of the acromion, the coracoacromial ligament, and the coracoid process. This is the coracoacromial arch. Remember I talked about it in the starting of the lecture. The undersurface of the acromion process, the coracoacromial ligament, as well as the coracoid process. These three structures, they are forming the coracoacromial arch, which lies above the level of the shoulder joint. Yeah. So when we are doing this particular dissection, there are certain spaces which are creating. Just one thing we read was a triangle of auscultation. See, this is the teres major muscle. This is your teres minor, infra. Again a repetition. This is the the long head of the triceps attaching on the infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Okay, don't go into all these things. There are certain vessels, nerves and vessels which are passing in between. These three spaces which are created, This is the teres minor muscle posteriorly. Anteriorly क्या होगा? The subscapularis muscle. This space which is created between the teres minor, teres major and the tricep, this is a triangular space. This is the upper triangular space, and there is a quadrangular space here between the triceps muscle, the humerus muscle, the humerus bone, the triceps, superiorly the teres minor, laterally the humerus, medially the triceps muscle, and inferiorly the teres major. Between teres minor superiorly, inferiorly major, and humerus and tricep, this is a quadrangular space, and a lower triangular space between your humerus, teres major, and the triceps. There are certain vessels and nerves which pass from it, which are important. From the upper triangular space, you have the circumflex scapular vessels, right? And from the quadrangular, we have the axillary nerve and the posterior circumflex humeral artery and the axillary nerve. And from the lower triangular space, you have the radial nerve. The axillary nerve was here. We have the radial nerve and the profunda brachii artery in the lower triangular space. It is demonstrated here. These are the dissection images from our and we've seen this video also. The latissimus dorsi, teres major. Over here is the teres minor. ये infraglenoid tubercle से, this is the triceps muscle. This is the upper triangular space. This is the quadrangular space, and this is the lower triangular space. Teres minor, major, and the triceps. These are the spaces. This is your teres minor, इधर जाएगा, इधर से teres major fiber, इधर से minor fibers, and this is triceps and the humerus, the quadrangular, and this is a lower triangular space between the triceps, the humerus, and the fibers of the teres major. Again, the upper triangular space in between your teres minor. Laterally we have the long head of triceps, inferiorly the teres major muscle. Contents will be the circumflex scapular artery. The lower triangular space is between your teres major muscle. See, these are the fibers of the teres major. यहाँ से जा रहे हैं, the teres major muscle. Laterally we have the shaft of the humerus. This is the shaft of the humerus here laterally. And medially the long head of the triceps, and this contains the radial nerve along. This is a radial nerve, big thick radial nerve, and these are the profunda brachii vessels. This is a quadrangular space. ये थोड़ा सा आपको उसे देखना पड़ेगा because teres यहाँ से कट गया इस image में. We have teres minor, major, the triceps and the humerus, and it has the, it's not very clear in though, but we have the axillary nerve and the posterior vessels. I can see axillary nerve and the posterior circumflex humerus vessels. So there is a rich anastomosis which is formed behind the scapula. So basically you have your the vessels which are coming from the subclavian artery. This is the subclavian artery. From the first part we have the transverse cervical artery dividing into the superficial and the deep branches. The suprascapular sorry the anastomosis, this is formed behind the scapula. Let me just see. If you see that this is a subclavian artery, it continues as the axillary artery, and in the axilla, and the axillary artery will continue down as the brachial artery. You will be talking about all these vessels and nerves in the axilla also, but just a little quick this thing. See, we have your yeah, it's a long lecture.
Dr. Vidhu, I think you should stop. You must be fatigued.
Yeah, I am.
And I think they are fatigued.
Ma'am, then when we do about
But they have a class.
When do we do
Scapular
the movements, ma'am?
We'll schedule. Just stop. I think that was a lot in the morning. So I think we'll stop here.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Please take a break.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
I hope you were able to understand,
You can
students.
go. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Now,
Thank you,
under the
ma'am.
circumstances, this is the best.
I mean, I was trying to fiddle out how
Yes.
to show the scapula and how I think they'll be able to appreciate that thing. And
No, no, it's okay. It was well done under the circumstances.
Thank
You can
ma'am.
stop now.
Thank you,
Because
ma'am.
at 2 o'clock they have the class on axilla. So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Alright. Close
Okay.
the meeting.
So bye bye everybody. Thank you, ma'am. हेलो भैया हो गया।
हाँ जी मैडम आ गए।